Come on.
They're right there!
Let's go. Move, 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 move.
This episode of Choices Not Chances podcast is sponsored by Louisiana Gun Shop, located on Highway 90 West in Broussard, Louisiana, just south of Lafayette. For more information, stay tuned at the end of this episode. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast episode by the guest are those of the guest and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of the hosts or partners. This is Choices Not Chances podcast with Ryan and Matt. I'm your co-host, Matthew Charette. Sitting next to me is Ryan Rogers. Ryan?
All right, guys. Hey, thanks for coming back. Got a good one for you today. But before that, just keep in mind that any of our content that comes out, if you take something away from it, find something in it, something resonates within you about it, make sure you're not selfish and you share it out to the community. And also, if you haven't picked up a version or a copy of my book, Lines of Marja, it is for sale on Amazon, $17.99. And you can also link up with me through DM or through one of the social medias, and you can get a signed copy through me. Keep that in mind. Today, I'm bringing you a guest. His name is Jhon Drago. John's a former Marine. Well, he's a Marine forever, but he's a former active duty Marine who spent some time in the infantry and then kind of moved his way around and has now ended up on the S.W.A.T team in Pender County, right here in North Carolina. I ran into John as I was up at the Lieutenant Colonel resigned Stuart Scheller book signing in Jacksonville, North Carolina, over at Barnes & Noble. And we just struck up conversation and we started talking. And the more we talked, the more we opened up, different topics. And it was great. We talked for, something like 4.5 hours about, resourcing at the police departments and police departments in general, Marine Corps stories and things of the like. So I wanted to have John on. I wanted to bring him on, and we're going to talk about a couple different things, couple different topics today. But just as an opening, we'll start with you. So John, thanks for coming out, man. Thanks for coming out to the show, and I've been excited about the conversation. I've talked to the fellows about it and ready to get after it. But thanks for taking the time, man.
Absolutely, guys. First off, thank you guys for giving me this opportunity. I am humbled to be here today. Very excited, looking forward to this conversation, just getting to know one another and just sharing some of my experiences from the military, now law enforcement. And like I said, truly thankful to be here.
Yeah, man, appreciate it. Awesome. So, the way I like to start each episode, if you've ever seen any shows, is kind of some pointed questions there in the beginning. And I want to know where you come from. I want to know where a big deep dive into what I'm looking into for myself. My own personal research is, where does American exceptionalism come from?
Absolutely.
And it comes from somewhere. So, what was the childhood dynamic as far as was both parents in the house? Did you have siblings? Was religion involved? Those are the three big wave tops I like to cover in the beginning.
So, I was born in Colombia, actually, South America, for those who don't know where Colombia is. Very beautiful country. We're known for coffee. I was born there, and mainly I was raised by my grandmother. When I was 2 years old, my mother migrated to the United States and pursued the American dream, and to provide for me and my brother, my older brother at the time, and the rest of my family. Mm-hmm. My father was not in the picture. When he just kind of came in, saw me for a day. I was lucky that he showed up on birthdays occasionally, but other than that, it was strictly my grandmother, my older brother, my two cousins, and my aunt. Mm-hmm. Those were my family. Mm-hmm. My grandmother was very strict. From the beginning, she instilled very hard values on me, and she wanted the best for me. Mm-hmm. So that to me meant a lot. I would speak to my mom over the phone about every day, and she would call down there, and I remember when I was 2, I have a very vague image of her, but I didn't see my mom again until I was 9. Mm-hmm. So when I was 9, the opportunity came for me and my brother to move to the United States, and I remember being on that airplane with my grandma, and I was 9 years old, and she was my mother and my father figure.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember being on the airplane. She put me down on the airplane, and I just cried. Crying, because I didn't know what to expect. I'm leaving everything behind me, coming to a new and different country, different culture, having to learn a different language. I don't know anybody, and I was very nervous. But I gave her a hug, and she said everything was gonna be great. Got to the United States on July 4th, 2004. Yeah, I landed in JFK, New York airport, and I remember going through customs and everything, and they put me in this little room.
You landed in JFK, where you were headed to?
New Jersey. That's where my mom lived.
Okay,
so
gotcha.
Landed in one of the biggest airports.
Yeah, I was gonna say, man, that's a heck of a one to start in.
Language barrier.
Yeah.
I think I was with the one of the ladies from the airline was guiding me around. But customs, they because it was my first time coming to the United States, they brought me to this little room where they had to verify my visa and everything, right?
Oh yeah. Now,
So-
are you with your brother at least?
No, my older brother actually ended up coming by 30 days behind me,
Okay.
so I was by myself.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
And you're 9.
9 years old. So you can imagine how that felt,
I'm sure that's scary. Scary for any 9-year-old.
Yeah. So I'm in this little customs room where customs, they're doing their whole make sure my green card at the time, everything was good. So I was there for about an hour, and they finally gave me the thumbs up. So the airline assistant, she walks me out of the customs into essentially where everybody's at, waiting for their loved ones. And I'm walking out the airport, and I'm just like looking for my mother, but I don't have an image of my mom, and I just remember she runs to me and picks me up, and I just start crying,
Yeah, safety.
And it gives me a little emotions because looking back at it, it was challenging. I met my younger brother, who was born here, and he was about 5. So
When you met him for the first time.
no, so he actually traveled to Colombia to
Okay.
visit me a couple times. So, but that was actually when I came here. He was with my mom, and my mom was married at the time. So that's who welcomed me here. And like I said, July 4th, and they're all very excited. I'm looking around, so everything is nice. Coming from a third world country to the United States was huge. And it was the holiday weekend. And my mom was like, "Hey, we got a trip planned, and we got all our friends. Everybody wants to meet you." So I didn't have anything on me. I had a maybe like a pair of clothes, and she takes me down to the mall, and we go shopping. They just buy me all kinds of stuff, right? And I'm like, okay, and we ended up going down to the beach, South Jersey, actually called Wildwood, New Jersey, where we camped for the weekend, and everything was great. Met everybody, all the friends, but it quickly started hitting me because I realized the language barrier. Everybody was speaking English, everybody was laughing, joking, everybody knew each other, and I just felt like I didn't belong there.
Right.
I remember going to bed at night crying because I miss my grandma, and I just told my mama I don't want to be here, but she said it'll work out. Then she enrolled me in school, and I think it was 4th to 5th grade where I went into, and I went in class, and everybody welcomed me. Everybody was very friendly, but I was in the ESL program, which is English second language.
Okay.
Where you pretty much the class is being taught in Spanish, but they're also teaching you English at the same time, and it was very hard for me. Even at 9 years old. I started picking up the English, understanding the conversation in about 6 months. But I remember, my neighbors, they would say, things to me, all I would say is yes, yes. It was just, everything was yes. But anyways, I went through school, graduated, made elementary school, went to middle school, and my mom got divorced, so it was just me, my older brother. My older brother at the time, he was still, same thing, he came when he was 15. So it was a little more challenging for him. He went into high school, and he had some challenges in high school because he just, again, the culture
Assimilation.
difference, man.
Yeah.
And he ended up dropping out of high school, getting himself in trouble and causing a lot of stress for my mom and my family. And my mom was a single mother working sometimes 2 jobs. She worked a night shift. And we lived in a small apartment.
In Jersey?
In Elizabeth, New Jersey.
Yeah.
Which is a known Hispanic community. And we adapted pretty quickly. I ended up starting high school. And the opportunity came. My high school was offering a program called ROTC, which was the Marine Corps ROTC. And had the retired first sergeant, who was the instructor. And as a freshman, I remember going in there, and I'm like, man, I want to be in here. I remember everybody, doing formations and marching and doing the drills. So I signed up for that instead of gym, the typical gym. And I started going through the whole program from all the way senior year. I played sports. I played soccer. It was pretty much all I wanted to do, play soccer and being on the ROTC program. And that to me was huge because that instructor, that first sergeant, was kind of like a father figure to me.
You remember who it was?
Yeah, First Sergeant Philibert, Michael Philibert. To this day, we're friends on Facebook.
Shout out, Michael.
Yeah, and he was typical first sergeant, by the book. But hey, I'm thankful. A lot of my friends actually were in the program with me as well.
What is it about him that made him that impactful to you?
He was straightforward. He didn't sugarcoat anything. If you were wrong, you were wrong. He corrected you, but he told you why he was correcting you, and he legit wanted you to be successful, whether it was going off to college or going off to the military.
Like he had genuine care about
Yes.
your future.
Absolutely. And he spent more time with us than he did with his family. And most of us that were in the program had some interest in the military. However, my mother told me at a young age, she said, I'm a single mom. I can't afford to pay for you to go to school. So you're going to have to either get a scholarship or join the military. But growing up in Colombia, I remember seeing the police officers on there and the National Army, and I always thought I wanted to be either a cop or in the military.
There's something about you, your archetype said that
Yes.
you were going to protect people and not the opposite of that.
Absolutely. And down there was so much violence and so much drugs and so much crime. I didn't want to be part of any of that. I wanted to be on the other side. I wanted to be making that difference. So the opportunity came. I was a junior in high school, playing soccer. My grades were, average. I wasn't the smartest kid. I didn't get in any trouble. I had a second job. I worked at a mall at a pretzel shop. Bought my first car when I was 17. I think I paid like $800 for it, a little Honda Civic.
Heck yeah.
But it got me from point A to point B. And when I was 17, I told my mom I wanted to join the Marine Corps. Or actually, I wanted to join the military, in period. And but I was convinced that I was going to go to the Navy. There was something about the Navy that really struck to me.
What was it?
I don't know, just the uniforms. We had another instructor that was in the Navy as well, and she was very adamant. Hey, this is the Navy. You get to travel the world and everything. And I remember seeing the posters in school about the Navy SEALs and all that stuff, and I was like, man, that's cool, So I wanted to join the Navy. So when I turned 17, I went up to my mom and said, hey, I want to join the military, Mom. And she was so proud. She was like, absolutely.
Yeah.
Of course. So, obviously I was not 18, so she had a sign for me. So I went down to the recruiter station, and it was both the Army, the Marine Corps, and Navy all together in one building. So when you walk in, I remember going in, and I see the Navy recruiter. I think it was like a chief, and he was just by himself in the desk. And I go in there, and I'm like, I'm looking for my recruiter such and such. And he's like, well, he ain't here. And it was like a Friday afternoon. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to go home, right? But next door to it, it was the Marine Corps recruiter, and it was like chaos coming from that office. Yeah. So, obviously curiosity kills a cat. Yeah. So I poked my head in there in the Marine Corps recruiter's office, and they're all doing pull-ups and just, hollering and
Just the sounds of getting after
yeah.
it. Yep.
And they see me poke my head in there, and the recruiter's like, hey, you get over here, right? So I'm like, yes, sir. What are you doing here? I said, I'm here to join the Navy, sir. He's like, the what? The Navy. He's like, no, you're not. You're gonna be a Marine. Hop on the pull-up bar and give me 10, right? But at the time, I was pretty in shape because I was getting ready.
Yeah.
We run 3 miles a day, pull-ups. My mom bought me a pull-up bar that you put in over your the frame of your room.
Yeah.
And that's what I use.
Bust them out.
Yeah. So I knocked out 10, and they're like, oh, this guy, So I liked it. They invited me to be part of the coming to their weekly PT sessions, which is like every Wednesday we met at 4:30, and I was always there on time. We ran 3, 4, 5 miles. I mean, we were in shape.
Mm-hmm.
So then I had to take my ASVAB, right? So I took my ASVAB, and I didn't study for it, right? It was bad. it was a low score. Recruiter said, hey man, listen, we got to take the ASVAB again. So I ordered a book online, ASVAB for Dummies.
I did the same thing.
Yeah. And I went home and just read the whole thing, studied the whole thing. And
It's a big book.
Yeah. I mean,
It's a big book.
It was thick,
Yeah.
yellow book, and it was like $20 at the time. And in between school, work, my time off, and going to the weekly pulley functions, I just read that book.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually, I went back and took that ASVAB again, and I scored very high.
Mm-hmm.
And then, the recruiter was like, "What do you want to do?" And I was like, "Well, at the time, I liked to work on cars. That was my hobby, working on cars." He's like, "Perfect, dude. I have the perfect job for you." And I was like, "Okay, well, what is it?"
Gonna ruin that for you.
Yeah, because in high school, I took part of a vocational program, which was half of the day we were at school, learning math, science, history. And the other half, they would load us up in a bus and take us to another school. And then we would just learn, how to work on vehicles.
Trades. Yeah.
Vocational school. I
Yeah.
loved it.
Yeah.
And all the guys that I graduated with are now like big-time mechanics back home working for BMW and Lexus.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, I want to work on cars. He's like, perfect. You're going to be a diesel mechanic for the Motor T. I was like, okay, that sounds cool.
Bet.
Right? So, I go to MEPS, get sworn in and everything. And then I get, brought into the delayed entry program and had about 6 months. So 6 months back in high school, I finished high school, graduated, and then they're like, yeah, you're leaving next week. So my mom throws me a huge going away party. All my friends are there, my girlfriend at the time, everybody, right? And then time comes, and then, mom's crying, everybody's upset, and I didn't leave.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
So went back to the house. Hey, mom, I ain't leaving today. Maybe next month. So I went back to working, and then the same thing happened again, right? And finally,
You got another party?
no.
Oh.
Finally, the third
Work that out.
time, the recruiter was like, "All right, dude, you're leaving this time for sure." And I turned 18, December 5th, and then I left end of January 23rd of 2013. I pushed out of Brooklyn, New York. Got on that plane down to I think it was Savannah, Georgia, and I don't know what I was doing, man. I was nervous, but I know this is what I wanted to do. I didn't know what to expect.
It's a ball full of anxiety on that flight going down at 18 years old. I don't care who you are, what you come from.
Yeah.
You don't know what to expect, and that's the unknown is what gets you. Like, you know that you, like you said, you knew there were going to be people there with you, and you wanted to be with them, but you didn't know who it was, where it was, what it was. Yeah, man. So you go to PI then, huh?
Yes, East Coast Marine. So I remember being on the plane and just thinking, man, all my friends are going off to college. State universities, Rutgers, New Jersey. Yeah. Everybody's going to all these schools, playing sports on scholarships, and here I am, joined the Marine Corps. But hey, I was proud,
Mm-hmm.
To me that was a big deal to me because I was gonna pay back for the opportunity of my family and myself being in the United States, chasing that American dream.
Sure.
So we get to Savannah, and one of the Marines, comes and he's wearing campaign cover, and he just starts kind of not yelling, but like he's a little stern. So we're like, whatever, dude. You want me on the bus? Cool. we all load up in the bus, like, I don't know, like 40 of us, maybe 50, right? I never met any of these dudes ever in my life. They're from all over, you know, the United States, the eastern side of the Mississippi River, like we call it, right? And we're going down to, from the airport down to Paris Island. It's like an hour and a half ride. But it was like late at night, man. It was like 11 o'clock at night. And I left my house at 4 a.m. that morning. So my mom was probably wondering, man, what's going on? I haven't heard from him, my family, you know? But I told her I would call her whenever I can. So we're going down the bus. Everybody's joking and thinking about, man, this is going to be a joke. Like, we have nothing to worry about, right? And suddenly the bus comes to a complete stop. And, you know, MP's like, hey, everybody put your head down. You know, nobody talks. So at that point, we're like nervous, man. This is like, shit, we're in boot camp. So the bus driver, to this day, I still believe he just drove us in circles because he was the longest from the gate to wherever, you know. And when he came to a complete stop, man, I would never forget this. Whoever it was just got on that bus, and it was just like the devil himself. You know, he's like, everybody out of my bus, you know, and you know, I got my little yellow folder on me with all my paperwork, and standing in my yellow footprints. And when I was standing there, and you know, I'm getting yelled at, everybody's getting yelled at. At that point, I was like, holy shit, what the fuck did I do? Like, what did I get myself into, you know?
It was then that Drago said,
yeah,
oh shit.
Like, Jesus. So, you know, they give you the typical speech. You only go through these hatches one time and one time only, right? And that's going to be the journey to become a United States Marine. So I went through the hatches, sat in the little, you know, small school-sized desk that they give you. Yeah. And I'm just getting yelled at, you know, and, you know, call my mom. I'm getting yelled at and reading off the freaking wall. And I arrive safe, don't send me bulk items, whatever. Boom, like 5 seconds. And then started boot camp. And boot camp was tough for me. It was mentally challenging for me. It wasn't physically, it was more mentally because, number one, my bearing sucked, man. I remember when we on Saturday.
You got a little extra attention from time to time.
Oh man, that's Saturday. That Black Saturday, how we call it, right? When they pick you up and you meet your drill instructors, and then they just start going crazy. Man, to me, it was the funniest thing seeing other guys getting IT'd. It was the funniest thing.
And how they reacted to it.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
But then I got caught, man, laughing so much, and they used to take me out to the sand pit, and so very quickly I learned not to laugh and started developing my bearing. But
how long would you say that took?
Man, it took me like 2 weeks.
2 weeks, yeah, real quick.
And then
they helped you study that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then my rack mate, man, this guy, he was a complete idiot. Like, he will fuck everything up. You know, we couldn't make his rack or anything, so I would get punished instead of him. Mm-hmm. So eventually I started getting pissed off at him and said, hey man, you need to put your head out of your ass. Like, get it together, you know. We're going on phase 2 here. We need to get, you know. And I remember, you know, sending letters and telling my family, man, this sucks. You know, fuck, man. Like, I can't wait to be off. But as we got closer to graduation, you know, meeting all of the rest of the guys there, because, you know, I remember being under the rack and seeing the tally marks, like with Sharpies, you know, and our drill instructor, man, I will never forget this man. His name is Sergeant Gay.
Shout out.
This good, I think he was like a force recon dude, but he was just mean dude. And another guy, Sergeant Kalina, man, great guy. I still talk to him to this day. He's a gunny now. Well, first sergeant, I'm sorry. And he was our green hat, and this dude just smoked us, man, all the time. Like, damn, there was no in between. Like, you're gonna get it or you're not gonna get it. I remember going out. We're doing drill, right? We're marching toward the parade deck, and it was hot. South Carolina, sandflies, you know, everywhere, man.
Not cool.
And we're marching at Port Arms, and I just couldn't help it. I was always like towards the middle of the platoon.
So what happened when you're in the middle of the platoon?
So we're marching down the parade deck, you know, doing our drill stuff, and sandflies are everywhere, hitting my neck, my face, hitting the rest of my buddies. Man, and I just couldn't help it but smack my face, and I got caught. And Kalina, he's like, everybody freeze, right? So freeze, and he's like, "What did you just do?" I said, "No, sir, this recruit just trying to, get the fly out of his face." And he just lost it. He's like, "Oh, good, pick it up." So I grab it with my left, on hand. He's like, "Everybody bring it on, all right? We're going to have a barrel service."
Oh, no.
Yeah, we're going to have a barrel service. He killed a sandfly. So, then we went back to the squad bay, and he's like, "Everybody put your sweat towels on, close all the windows." And we just got smoked for like 30 minutes. And, yeah, it was good times. And then we graduated boot camp.
What did your buddy say to you that you were coming down hard on for jacking up when he had to get slayed for you slapping the flea?
Man, he just kind of looked at me. He's like, he didn't have much to say because he knew.
I get it.
Yeah, he had no right to talk.
Yeah.
I mean, and we would get mad at each other for messing up or whatever, but we knew that, hey, this is just games, man. Mind games.
Like, that's the thing about boot camp is the sooner you can make it right in your head that this is just a big game, well, the sooner you're going to, like, be more sane about it and more calm when things happen. It's like they're going to tell you to paint the wall black, and you're going to do it perfect, and then they're going to ask you why it's not white. And you just got to go, yep, get the white paint out. You know what I mean? Right. Because if you fight it and say you try to say it, or you're going to have a bad time.
Yeah, so no matter what we did, we were always wrong. But it was an expectation, and I started to understand why they were doing the things that they were making us do. Mm-hmm. And so we're getting close to graduation. Family day rolls around. Family comes down. My mom, I lost a lot of weight, man. Probably like 30 pounds. Mm-hmm. My mom was super proud. She brought everybody down. My cousins, everybody came down. And graduation was, to this day, probably one of the most proudest things in my life. Marching down that parade deck, it's like perfect. Everybody, we're on our I graduated in April, end of April, so it was Charlie season. And nice. It was the music, the drums. It was, we're marching to the beat of the drums, and just seeing the stand packed with family members. It was such a huge, proud moment. And to this day, I will never forget it. So, went home for my 10 days of leave, recharging batteries. And then it was time for me to come to MCT.
And you did that right here at Geiger, yeah?
Yes. So, I remember when I landed in Jacksonville and took the cab to MCT in my little pickle suit, my Alphas, because you have to check in your pickle suit. And the cab driver was like, "Where are you coming from?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm coming from New Jersey." He's like, "Well, welcome to Jacksonville, North Carolina. This is going to be the black hole of the Marine Corps. You're never going to leave this place." And I just
here you sit.
Looked at him. Yeah, I looked at him and I was like, "What are you talking about, man? Like, I'm just here and I'm probably go to California, Hawaii, whatever." So did MCT. It was cool. And then graduated, and then I was a diesel mechanic, so went right straight to Camp Johnson. So just not even. We got on the bus. Went down the bus. Again in our pickle suit. We got down there, checked in, and we had a gunny who received us, right? Mm-hmm. He's like, "Everybody go upstairs, change into your camis." So we get down there, and, camis. He's like, "All right, we're going on a run, tank trail run," and he just smoked us down. We ran for like 4 or 5 miles, and I was like, "Damn, never ending, right?" Never ending. But I picked up class, started learning, the basic things, the way the Marine Corps wants you to learn. It wasn't like the civilian side, the vocational side, where you're actually it's a standard, but I think it's ASE. I think it is.
Okay.
It's a little different. They teach you, by the books. You're watching little Marine net classes. This is a wrench. This is a screwdriver, and then you practice it, and then just the basics, right? And then graduated from there, and I got orders to second maintenance right there in Camp Lejeune. Yeah. Most of my class, we weren't there. The other half went to California. So I went there, and I checked in, and most of the platoon or the unit was deployed to Afghanistan. Mm-hmm.
What year are we talking about? 05?
Mm-hmm. No, 13. Yeah.
Why did I get messed up? Oh, you came here in 04, so a year later it would have been 05. You came in 13. This is 14. Okay, check.
So this was towards the end of 13 when I checked into my first unit. So most of the unit was deployed to Afghanistan. So we kind of just hung back. The guys got back, you know, and they just started taking us under their wing. I enjoyed my job, but very quickly I realized that's not what I wanted to do.
In the wrong spot, huh?
Yeah.
What made you feel like that?
Well, most of the guys in that unit were they were gonna get out. They wanted, you know, to do 4 years and get out, and I was very motivated. You know, I was PT stud. Anything that came available, like I was doing it. You know, I wanted to be a leader. I was taking charge of guys. You know, and very quickly I started realizing that that's not what I wanted to do. But it was a job, and you know, I did it anyway. But at the same time, I started kind of like setting myself apart from the rest of my peers. So I got promoted to corporal very young. I think it's like under 2 years. I went through. I became a map instructor. I got all the way to black belt. Then started teaching Marines, and then I got promoted to.
When you say you started teaching Marines, you brought that back to your unit and started training martial arts with your section of guys?
Yeah, so they sent me to be an instructor. So I came back and I started PTing my guys and you know, just kind of motivating my guys. And then they sent me to be a coach, a marksmanship coach. And I went out to the range, spent a lot of time in the range. Most of the time I was TAD doing that stuff. And then I came back, and right about the 3.5 year time frame of being in, the opportunity came to where I got orders to go be an enabler at 2nd Marine Raider Battalion. And,
now, what's that mean when you say be an enabler?
So you pretty much, you get attached to the unit, and these team guys, you know, they need enablers. They need motor T guys, supply guys, comm guys. They can't deploy without us. So we're just an asset to them. So I checked into 2nd MRB, Stone Bay. No, not Stone Bay, Courthouse Bay. And I remember the first day I walked in, I mean, it was like, this is where I belong.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. Them guys were, you could tell they're all in shape, you know, awesome, humble individuals. Like, I was a corporal at the time, and I just started picking people's brains.
Yeah. You walk into a room where it's a bunch of lions that already proved themselves. Yes. So there's no room for personality, and then it becomes, these are the guys that operate on different levels than the rest of the fleet.
Yep.
And then that becomes contagious regardless of who you are. Like
exactly.
we've had that a lot of times on here. Guys talking about it.
And I had a friend of mine who, he was a gunny at the time. He was an actual raider. And he would just tell me how everything that he would do and everything that all the training and all the experiences, and he kept telling me, man, you try it out, man. Go for it. You could do it. My biggest fear was swimming. I couldn't swim, man. So I checked into the unit as an enabler.
The Marines are amphibious, aren't we?
Yeah.
Some of us.
Yeah. That basic.
There's a lot of us that can't swim, I figured out.
That basic swim quad, it's not it, man. It's not it. It's just, they throw you off there with a pack and a rifle and like, okay, you're done. You don't touch the ground, all right, you pass. That is not it. So I got there, started very quickly. I realized that I was not the real Marine Corps. It wasn't like, the standard was different, man. It was relaxed standards. Haircuts were like no longer a thing. Basic things like your blouse, like your boot blouses, your
cami sleeves.
Yeah, like it was super laid back. Everybody was on a first name basis. It was no longer corporal, lance corporal, sergeant. It was like, hey, come here, John, do this, right? So I was like, man, this is cool, man. Like, you know, they're like, be here at this time. But it was grown man rules. There was no longer that, you know, working party thing. It was, that's where I wanted to be. So then I started asking myself, how can I get there? How can I be one of these guys? So started PTing and really pushing myself a lot. So I saw the recruiter for the Raider recruiter. I met with him, and he gave me a long, thick package, man. It was just like you had to run a PFT, and it was crazy at the time. But I got it all done, and then they give you an app where it's like a workout program for like 8 weeks where you have to pretty much follow every program, and just to prepare you for the assessment and selection to be a radar.
Yep, very nice.
So I remember I went up to. So it was funny because I had a gunny who was in charge of the Motor T unit, which was drivers and mechanics. But at the same time, as a mechanic, I didn't do my job there because we had civilians employed by Lockheed Martin. So it had a lot of, the money is there. So these civilians were literally getting paid to do our job. We just kind of stood there and just watched and did whatever we wanted to, So I took my time and I just started employing it and bettering myself by being better at physical fitness. And I had the resources that other people didn't have, which was being around these guys. And they would come back from deployment, and I pretty much saw how everything worked. I saw the whole cycle. They do a workup, they'll do a bunch of training events, and they will deploy. They'll come back, and they'll have like a phase where they just kind of relax, go back to school. So I just started talking to these guys, and then I went up to the civilian who was in charge of my section, old Crumbie, retired Marine. He was very like, what's the word I'm looking for? Crusty Marine. And I told him, sir, his name was Kelly. I remember I went up to him and said, Kelly, I want to go to selection. He's like, what? No, like you're a mechanic. I was like, well, I mean, it's my career, So he finally said, whatever, go do whatever you want to do. So I got signed off on it, and I got a date for August of 2016. That was when I was going to go to selection. But I had like almost a whole year to prepare for this. So I know my weakness was I couldn't swim. So I took advantage of the pool that these guys have, man. They have the facilities that these guys have is crazy, man. The gyms, the pool, and everything. So I started going to that pool every morning, 5 a.m. Indoor pool, which was great. Winter, I was there at 5 a.m. And I just started kind of watching these guys. And I remember I asked them, hey, how can I be like you? How can I get like you? And they were so humble that they didn't care that I was an enabler, a poke, whatever you want to call it. They took me under their wing, and they's like, this is how you do a breaststroke. This is how you do a side stroke. This is how you do a combat, This is how you do an underwater crossover. And this is hold your breath like this, do this, And I started getting really good at it. And by the time selection came, I was ready.
Smoked it.
Yeah, I was ready. So I remember I checked into selection middle of August of 2016. I'm right there in Stone Bay. And
doesn't get much hotter around these parts than in the middle of August, bro.
No, it doesn't. It was because they run two classes like in the spring, April, and then in August. So they gave me August. I was a sergeant at the time, but when you check in, the first thing they tell you is, hey, everybody take your rank off. So there's no ranks. But there was like lieutenants all the way down, all ranks. Marines from all over the world come because they want to try out to be a special operator, right? And for me, it was just local. I just drove there, checked in, and you have to cover your name tape. So all you have is U.S. Marine, and then you cover your name tape, and they give you a number. So you're known as a number. So I was 31, and but initially it was 331 of us candidates who checked into the school to try to get a spot. And the first day, get there, and you have this cadre instructors who are either active special operators or retired guys, private contractors, super knowledgeable guys, man. Green Berets, a couple Navy SEALs. I think there's a couple Air Force guys in there too, but they're super knowledgeable. And then you're taking instructions from them and then from a whiteboard that every day, you're coming in and you're listening to what their schedule of the day is going to be, you know. But it was very physical, man. Every day was either a PFT, you're doing some type of physical event, and very quickly the numbers started dropping because, like, I mean, when you check in, you change, you do a PFT, and then if you're not cutting the numbers, you're gone, you know. And then you got to tie these knots, which I didn't know how to tie a knot. I'm a mechanic, you know. Most of the guys that I was with, they're all infantry guys, recon guys, snipers. You know, it was very few of us who were not in a combat-related MOS. So I just kind of started watching and other guys and just learning from everybody. But I knew that the first 3 weeks, it was a prep course where you have to prove yourself physically to be invited to the second phase. So it was long rucks. You know, I remember one day we had to be there early in the morning, 4 a.m., and it was very strict, man. They had a scale where you would bring your ruck, and you had to be exactly 45 pounds. If it was a pound less or under, you had to go fix it, and they would, you know, note that down against you. And so I started rucking, you know, and these guys are fast, man. This recon guys and snipers are fast 'cause that's what they do. I'm a motor T guy, but I'm still in the best shape of my life. And I started realizing that I was keeping up with them, staying with the same group of guys. And I just wanted to be able to prove myself. It was very physically and mentally challenging. To this day, it's probably the hardest thing I ever done. And it was such a great experience that the number kept dropping and dropping from 331 of us to, like, now we're down to 150 to the end of week 3. And they sit you down and you got to do psychological evaluations and peer evaluations and everything. And finally, the day came and they posted on the whiteboard all our numbers, the candidates that were going to go up to the actual selection. And my number was up there.
Oh.
And I looked around, and everybody whose number was up there was this, like, dudes who were, like, badass dudes, like combat deployments, some type of combat-related MOS. And I was one of the very few ones who was not. I didn't have any combat experience, 0 deployments, and I was up there with these guys. But it was such a humbling experience because these guys, they would do anything to help you out.
They didn't care who you were.
They did not care where you came from.
Especially probably after the second week. You find out who's there to be there and who's not there to be there. Yep.
And I remember I saw guys in the pool struggling. They couldn't swim, but they refused to quit. And the instructors were doing everything possible to get these guys to quit. I remember being in the pool one time, and there's like 20 of us in the little they call it a honeycomb. You jump in the pool, and everybody's like tight together. We're treading water, and a lot of the guys are claustrophobic. So they're like panicking, you know.
Yeah, grabbing on each other.
We're passing bricks. They start with 1 brick, and then by the end of it, we have like 10 bricks. Just, you know, you're literally catching 1 brick and you're passing it around, treading water. And then people are freaking out. People are dropping like flies. But only the true warriors that want to be there are still, you know, sucking it up. And I mean, I was sore. I was tired. I experienced everything that Marines experience. Like, they put you through that. So finally, I got invited to second phase. And this was up north. I had no idea where we were going. We loaded up on the bus. Before we get there, they tell us, hey, everybody, close your eyes. You're not allowed to see where we're at. So I said, okay. So we get there, the bus is there, and then when we get out, there's like a yellow line where you kind of jump out and you have to stand in this yellow line. And there's like buildings where you're going to stay at. But we got there like at 3 o'clock in the morning, and right off the bat, it was different instructors. And they would transfer you in these white vans that were covered with like trash bags. You couldn't see anything out of these bags. And the whole time, they're playing white music in the background. So they're messing with you mentally and physically. So you don't know where you're at. You're carrying your pack with you at all times. And they give you a beacon that has a GPS tracker attached to your pack. And at any time during those last 3 weeks, if you feel like you're going to quit, you just push it, and then you're set. You're done. They'll come get you, and you'll never be seen again. And that first night, we go into one of the buildings, and right off the back, first class is like land nav. And it's like not basic land nav, it's like advanced land nav. And I struggle with land nav, which, again, motor T guy. And I try to pay as much attention as I could. And little sleep. We got little sleep during those 3 weeks. And most of it was a lot of land nav. So they say, hey, they give you 8 points. And each point was about a click each. You have to, go find this point. So I remember my first point, I looked at the map, plotted, and I just decided that I was just going to straight that wrecking, which was a bad idea because I learned very quickly that where we were at, the terrain features, you couldn't do that. You had to actually read a map.
Do intersection and resection.
Yeah, and the instructors were, driving around trying to see who's, cheating by, staying on the roadway. You couldn't stay. The rules were you cannot be visible at any time. Anytime if you were visible by an instructor, you were going to get hit. And so that first mistake, I paid hard for it because I was exhausted. It took me forever to find this point. Because I was going down, hills and ridges and crossing creeks. And then very often you would see other candidates and they were just like tired, worn out. People were like, I'm done, I'm quitting, pushing the beacon button. And then at the end of the night, we'll go back to the squad bay we were at. And then, because we had like racks. And then most of the guys that would quit, you would never see them again. Their mattress was gone. And you would never see them again.
Just come back and find out you lost some more.
Yeah. And there was no cell phones. You could have no contact with the outside world. And it was land nav after land nav after land nav. And then I started getting good at it, I got smart by actually learning my terrain features, and I was starting to find these points very fast along with the rest of the guys, right? Then we did a couple situation scenarios, and then we got closer towards the end of selection, and we knew we were getting close to the end of selection because we went from like 100 of us to like now we're down to like 50. Mind you, 331 now to 50. And again, I kept looking around, and there's always the same badass dudes from day one. And only a couple of us were non-combat related MOS guys. And then the last 4 days, we didn't do anything. We just sat in the squad bay and we ate, went to lunch, came back, dinner, breakfast. And they said, hey, they gave us a book, and you had to read the whole book and type a book report, a long book report. That's, to me, was just like killing time. But they actually they call you out individually, and you sit down with a psychologist and you answer all these questions, and they're able to tell you exactly who you are based off those questions, like your personality, everything. And then we would do peer evaluation where we all sit down in computers and then we'll look at each other. And then the instructors would say, well, answer these questions and, pretty much grade one another from whether it was teamwork, physical fitness, and everything went into account, whether it's like being the first guy at the line waiting to eat. Like somebody saw that as like, oh no, you're not a team player. You want to eat first, you're not a team player. So they would ding you when your peer eval came. Same thing when it was time to go shower. If you were the first guy hopping in the shower, yep, you're not a team player. But if you kind of hung out towards the back, you were helping others first before you helped each other. I mean, they love that. They're like, oh, this guy's a team player.
I know it's a lot. Well, I hear that it's a lot like that, the layover test. Like, you could be great at everything. You could be the best at everything. But if you don't pass the sleepover test and you're a douchebag, team guys are going to know it.
Right.
And not just team guys. Regular infantry is the same thing. Not the same thing. We don't have the same standards, the same. But when you're a selfish dude, everybody knows it.
Right.
When you're not a team player, everybody knows it. It's no way to hide it. That's just you. It's just your personality. And those guys do not vibe well in that team environment at all.
Right. Like
that's good that they weed that out, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, it was. So then, like one of the final days, we knew that the selection was taking place. And at that point, we were no longer taking instructions from an actual cadre instructor. Everything was from a whiteboard. And it came from chow, from lunch. And there was a huge whiteboard. And there was a list with like 31 numbers in there. And we all gathered around this whiteboard. We looked at the whiteboard, and it said, if your number's in here, gather all your belongings, be outside in the yellow lines within 10 minutes. And my number was right there, along with the same guys that I thought were badass dudes. So we were all scrambling our stuff as fast as we could. We get to the yellow lines, and we were all like nervous, looking at each other. It was like, man, did we make it? Because we knew that you could only attend this selection one time. If you make it all the way to the second phase. You could try it out as many times in the first phase, but once you make it to the second phase, you can't come back because you already know what's going to take part, right? So I think it was a colonel came out, and he came out and he's like, a Marine Raider colonel, he's like, man, congrats, you guys are heart select to be Marine Corps special operators. And we were like, wow, like, it was just like, holy shit, are you serious? And we were all, like hugging each other, happy. A lot of the guys were crying. And then they loaded us in the bus and brought us back to Campbell Jhon, and we never saw the rest of the guys ever again.
That was the group.
Yep. They called us heart selects, which was like, no doubt, like you passed everything. You guys demonstrated everything, every capability that's required to be a Marine Special Operator. And humbling and gratefully, I was part of one of them, right?
Now, do you become an enabler then, or do you become a CSO and get the MOS?
So once you get selected from there, I came back to Lejeune, right? And they put us to an additional 2 weeks of like recovery process because, like, man, my body was worn out, my feet were blistered, I was sore. Guys had stretch fractures, So very quickly they put us to like our own physical training program, a diet program. They even gave us like our own personal insoles for our feet, and we were just recovering from there. So then from there, I re-enlisted. So you have to re-enlist for 5 years.
Yep.
So that was in end of September, and my EAS was coming up in January. So I re-enlisted for 5 years, and Marine Corps said, hey, we're going to give you $60,000.
Yeah.
To re-enlist, be a critical skill operator, CSO. But then you have to, you can't get it. You have the option. Either you give it to you now, or we'll give it to you when you graduate the MOS school, which is 9 months long. And this school, 9 months long, I mean, that's a lot of people got hurt during that school. But when I got back to my unit, I guess I was a sergeant, and they sent me to sergeant's course. It's December. And again, that was grueling. I mean, you're a small leader. As a sergeant, they expect a lot of you. Marine Corps NCO, PT every day. And that's when I started realizing that I started having some issues in my lower back. I was still performing pretty well, but like I noticed that my back was not, there was something wrong with my body. My back was aching. So I reached out to, I wanted to suck it up as much as I could, but it came to a point where like, man, you got to go see the doctor. So I went to see a doctor, and they did like x-rays and everything, and they're like, oh, you're fine. So I kept pushing, and then I went back to my unit, and then a week before checking into the actual ITC course, which is the course where you spend 9 months to become an operator, I got in trouble. So when I was in sergeant's course, we had a group chat with my unit, the guys on my unit, and you know how Marines are on that group chat, man. Memes, and memes were sent out, and I took responsibility because I was part of that conversation, and during that conversation, we were making fun of one of the Marines, like junior Marines, like sister, and so eventually our gunny found out about it, and he was pissed, man. He was pissed, and he like showed the first sergeant. The first sergeant was pissed, and they went up to the sergeant major. So of course, because I was a sergeant, and then I was the senior guy, right? Man, I got held accountable. So 3 of the Marines got an NJP for harassment or whatever, and then they gave me a 6 to 105 for condoning it, right, their behavior. And a week before I checked into ITC, the sergeant major of 2nd MRB, he called the monitor and canceled my orders to school, man.
Oh, wow.
Man, that right there, it was probably the biggest
Blow.
like nut check, or like it was the most disappointing life moment of my entire life, man. I went home. I was married at the time, and I cried, man. I cried for days, man. I didn't want to do anything. My dream was crushed. Like, yes, it was a simple, petty mistake. I took ownership for it, but like, you just pull that away from me, like. And I begged and begged to be able to go to school, man, and they were like, nope, you're not going. Like, you're done. I'm like, dude, I just went through all this. I re-enlisted for 5 years, and now you're saying I can't, go to school? Like, you invested all this money in me. So that was the first slap in my face that I got from the Marine Corps. But the sergeant major wasn't a Marine Raider sergeant major. He was like an admin sergeant major, man. So
was this meme deserving? Was the meme in the harassment deserving of non-judicial punishment? Was it that grotesque?
It wasn't, man. They just wanted
or
to
did
prove
y'all
a
piss
point.
somebody off? Y'all just pissed somebody off.
We pissed our gunny off.
That's what it is.
We pissed our gunny off, and we all got held accountable, including myself. But to me, even though I didn't get NJP or Ninja Punch, that was like I got the worst.
Right?
I got the worst.
Yeah.
Because everybody, they were getting out. I just had re-enlisted for 5 years. So 2 weeks later, they gave me orders back to the fleet, to a truck company, big motor pool company, right? And I check in there, and everybody knows. I mean, you know how it is. Rumor spreads around, man. And everybody, before I get there, everybody knows who I am, what happened, And, people are like, shaking my hand, but at the same time, they're like, man, that's bullshit, And I was still trying. I was making, emailing people, calling. All my friends are trying to get me back into school. And that sergeant major was like, nah, man, you're not going.
It.
Yeah. So I said, whatever. So I gave up that opportunity. So I went back, became a platoon sergeant, and I was in charge of like 40 Marines. But it was rough, man, because going back to a unit where most of the guys don't want to be there, that negativity, man.
That's the most beautiful thing about special forces in general. I don't care what branch it is that when you look to your left and you look to your right, you know that every single one of them not only wanted to be there, but wanted to be there so bad that they sacrificed at least or more than what you sacrificed to be there. And so you're still always going to have your 10% of bullshit, right?
Oh, yeah.
But that I always found solace in that, and then now you're around a bunch of these savages that are like-minded, the meat eaters that you can sharpen your blade off of their blade, and somebody pulls a rug out from underneath you over a meme.
Yep.
That sucks, dude.
So I took it in the chin.
Yeah, what else could you do?
I took it in the chin, checked into this new unit, and my master sergeant at the time, he was like, man, I understand what happened, but he's like, you can recover from it. You could be a good Marine. And I did, started teaching Marines again, leading from example, just managing Marines and being that leader that I wanted to be. Because I wanted to do 20 years. I wanted to retire out of the Marine Corps. That was my dream. I mean, so I started, working again, back to the same regular civilian, BS, what we call it, playing games, up early in the morning, late nights, and because we were part of the 2nd Marine Division, we were a big unit. We provided a lot of support to the grunt units. So our trucks, our readiness was very low when I checked in. Man, it was like 70%, and that meant that we were working from lights to lights.
Yeah, you had some work.
The colonel was very big about us being ready for the 2nd Marine Division. So he wanted our readiness to be over 90%. That meant 7 tons of Humvees needed to be up and running. And when I got there, I mean, we were low. So we worked from 0.5 to sometimes 2,200. I mean, and most of us were married Marines, man, and this was killing the morale. Marines were getting divorced left and right. Marines getting in trouble, drinking and driving, just doing stupid things due to the stress and overwork that we were being placed on. And I was married too, and I started having issues with my marriage. And number one, I got married very young, man. You know, typical Marine. I was 18 when I got married. I got married behind my mom's back. She found out about it. She was pissed, you know. But, you know, at the time, I thought she was my high school sweetheart. But in reality, I was young. I didn't know what I was doing, you know. So
Colombian mothers don't have too much patience with all that, do they?
Nah, man. They're super strict, bro. They're super strict. It's either their way or their highway. Yeah. So I started having issues with my wife. We got separated. And I started hanging out with guys who did not have the mindset that I had. I started hanging out with Marines who just wanted to get out. And eventually I started having a bad attitude. And
that shit's contagious.
Oh, man, it is, man. Because I love the Marine Corps.
It's just as contagious as it is when you're in a room with a bunch of savages.
Absolutely.
And you have that contagious feeling to get better because you can see it. And you're like, I can pick that out and I can make myself better. But it's just as bad if you're inundated with nothing but negativity. Yeah. Right.
So started going through that stress of having issues at home, the stress of having being injured, seeing every doctor on Camp Jhon, taking part in physical therapy, chiropractor and everything, right? Then eventually it started to affect my mental health, where I started seeing a psychologist once a week.
Now, what started to affect it?
Well, I feel like I started going down a black hole because my dream was crushed. I was injured, and I was at a unit that I didn't want to be. I was working long hours, and then I was having marital problems, right?
Just a perfect storm of shit.
Yeah, so started going, kind of seeing like, I feel like I was getting depressed, a lot of anxiety. So I started seeing a doctor, talking to him about it, and finally, as I'm going through all this, right, my physical fitness is just decreasing, man, and
are you saying you're getting fat, or are you just saying that you're depressed and you're not about your regular workout regimen?
Yeah, like my morale went down, my energy levels went down, and I didn't want to be, I was hurting, number one, and number two, I feel like my purpose was taken away. So finally, after seeing all these doctors for like a year and a half, and, doctor said, hey man, you have some herniated disc in your lower back, and you're too young to surgery. I was 23 at the time. 23, yeah. You're too young, man. You're gonna have to adapt and live with it forever. Because if we cut your back, I mean, we can't really guarantee. Like I refuse to cut your back. So I'm like, what do I do? He's like, just adapt, like stay in shape, be active, and you'll learn to live with it pretty much. So, it was painful, man. And finally, after going through that, before I got medically retired. So, at the time, the Marine Corps was very strict about, you being married and separated and having another relationship. So, as a human being, me and my wife were separated, living in different households. I started dating another Marine, right? And she was a staff sergeant. I was a sergeant. Different unit, right? And my ex-wife found out about it, right? And she called my first sergeant.
Of course she did.
Man, and that was a big storm. Big storm. He came down and he's like made a huge deal out of it, I got kicked out of my own place. She got everything, right? So I'm like, whatever. And I was miserable, started drinking and just that negativity, right? And I ended up getting NJP, man. I got a battalion level NJP as a sergeant for dating another Marine, even though I was separated. And it's crazy because now
They don't care.
all that's gone. Like, you could do whatever you want as long as you're separated. They don't care. Like, some of the Marines, so many good Marines got in trouble like for that because their ex-wife will call, and they knew that they could do that, and they'll call your command.
Call your command, get you to write them some checks.
Bro, and they will, pretty much hold you by the balls. They're like, oh, if you don't do this, I'm gonna call your command. So like, my first sergeant, he was just tired of it, and so I got NJP, whatever, battalion level, and I was getting NJP with dudes that were doing stupid shit like drinking and driving, drugs, popping on, I was like, man, this is not me, like. So they restricted me to the barracks for 52 days, man.
Oh my goodness.
52 days. I kept my rank. My master, I went up there and he bat for me. The colonel who NJP me is like, all right, 52 days of restriction. You're keeping everything else. But then I couldn't drive nowhere. I couldn't go to the gym. I had to walk everywhere. And it was cold. This is in the middle of, towards the winter of 2017. So I recovered from that, bounced back from that, and then went back, became a platoon leader, a platoon sergeant again. And I was doing really well, man. Like my chain of command started noticing that I was, I picked myself up from that black hole that I was at. But the injury was still there. So just kept seeing different doctors, and then finally the decision was made where I was placed in LIMDU, where limited duties, you can't PT, you can't do anything, you can't just there, right? Which sucks. So I was placed in LIMDU for 6 months, and then they said, hey, we're gonna put you in a medical board. We're gonna, the Marine Corps is gonna go up, your package is gonna go up to DC, and they're gonna determine whether we'll keep you fit with your duty, you're fit for duty, or you're not fit for duty.
And this is deriving from the herniated discs.
Correct.
Okay.
And then the depression that came with that too, from actually not being able to do what I wanted to do, obviously. So the board came back and it said I was gonna get medically retired for my injuries, right? And they gave me like 30 days to check out and get out of the Marine Corps. So got out December 30th, 2018, and obviously I was like, man, this is not what I wanted, but this is how it's gonna be, so I had to accept it, right?
Yeah, and I would say at least they took care of you. Like,
Yeah.
there's a lot of people that got injured in the Marine Corps that didn't get boarded ever because of one reason or another, but a lot of times bad command structures.
Yeah.
Other times they didn't speak up for themselves until things got bad, and then they get out, or maybe they're ignorant, they don't know the ways of the Marine Corps, or God forbid it happens when they're E3 or below and nobody really gives, now they're better about it, but when we were all coming up, they didn't really care about that, drink water, eat ibuprofen, change your socks, and that's kind of like the
And then
advice.
go to war.
Yeah, so at least you, got, a fig leaf extended to you,
Yeah, so I got boarded for 3 years, got out, medically retired temporarily for 3 years, right? So that was in the end of December 2018. So now I'm like, what do I do? I started thinking, what do I do? I mean, I have a trade that I learned from the Marine Corps where I could make pretty good money in the civilian side. But again, I don't have a purpose of serving, because all I wanted to do was serve for 20 years. So I remember typing up my resume and just started looking for jobs. I went to a big hiring event here in Jacksonville, and I mean, John Deere was there, Cat was out there, and I told them who I was, my experience in the Marine Corps as a diesel mechanic for 6 years, and they were like, "Man, come on over. We'll hire you on the spot. You get everything. Like, we'll fly you to this, Midwest. You'll train,
school and stuff." Yeah.
And it was like instantly, like they wanted to hire me. But I was like, no, I don't want to do that. Like, I don't want to be there's nothing wrong with being a mechanic, but I didn't want to do that for the rest of my life. Like, so then I started thinking back of my childhood, how I wanted to be a cop, right? And I started doing some research, And I was like, you know what? I'm going to be a cop. I'm going to do it. Why not, right? So I went to my local community college, and I signed up for classes for the next basic law enforcement training, which was starting a week after I got out. Perfect time, right?
Like it was supposed to happen.
So I joined. I was in class. I think it was like 25 of us, mostly prior Marines. There was even a first sergeant there, man, retired first sergeant, badass dude. He wanted to be a cop, and he was there. We were all there. We went through it. It was a pretty grueling program. Here in Jacksonville, Coastal is known for being either the number 1 or the number 2 in the state, for training cops.
Wow.
So
that's Coastal Carolina Community College in Jacksonville, North Carolina. Just catch people up.
Correct. Yes, they have a really good program. So went through the whole program, and started putting in applications to local police departments. Because at the time, back in 2019 is when I went. I mean, law enforcement was a thing. Like, police departments were full. It was hard to get in with your local police department. It was very hard.
It's just before COVID and the whole world fell apart. Yeah, Roger.
Everything was great. So people were retiring. So if they will hire you, you have to be pretty much a correctional officer. They'll put you in the jail.
Yep.
And you have to work your way up to be able to hit the streets.
Yep.
So I got hired by one of the sheriff's offices right here in Duplin County, very rural county, and they gave me the opportunity to come be on patrol. So
like straight off?
Straight off.
Okay.
Like 5 of us took it, and all Marine veterans, man. We all took the opportunity.
Duplin's in good hands, huh?
Rural.
Say.
Yeah, rural county, man. Most of the guys ended up going to like Jacksonville or Onslow, but they had to, work their way up. So started working in Duplin, and then my training officer, man, one of my good friends to this day, Steve Snyder, shout out to him. Marine Corps veteran. Like, this guy, I didn't know, when I met him, I didn't know how to take him, man. He was just serious. Like, I know he was a Marine, but he was just a serious guy. I didn't know. And he was a sergeant, so I had to respect him, coming from that military background. But this guy, he was gonna be the one that was gonna teach me how to survive in the streets. Because you go to police academy, they're gonna teach you the black and white, the books. They're not gonna teach you how to survive in the streets and how to get home every day. So Sergeant Snyder, he's the one who brought me along. And pretty much when I got in his car, man, he was very serious. Like, I didn't know what to say. Like, I wanted to break the ice.
Yeah.
So I didn't. So the first thing I said, were you in the military? He's like, yeah, I was in the Marine back in the 90s. And I was like, oh shit. Well, I was a Marine too, sir, So he's like, well, I don't care. I'm gonna teach you how to survive and how to get home, right? And I will never forget this. The first thing he said to me was, you're always gonna approach a situation in a dominant manner. Everything you do in law enforcement, make sure you're in a dominant stance. And to this day, I'm never going to forget that. And eventually, we started, getting along more, and he started kind of easing off and started seeing the good side of him, the funny side of him. He was very, very fun, dude. So he trained me all the way up to when I got released. But Snyder he's a great shot, man, great shooter. I mean, he was part of the S.W.A.T team at Duplin. And we talk about it, and I would go out on my day off to his house. He's got a range on 25 acres, and he's a firearms instructor, and he would coach me, like, how to get better, do this, So he was like my mentor. I looked up to him. That was like the first person in law enforcement that I wanted to be like him. We got along great. I knew that if I was in a situation and I heard his number come out of on the radio to come back me up, I was gonna be okay. And I knew he felt the same way about me because he trained me. So I worked there, and then 9 months in, the opportunity to join the S.W.A.T team came up. Selection came up, right? But most departments have a requirement where you have to be at least 2 or 3 years in the department before you could actually even try out.
Sure.
However, they made an exception, right? They said, well, if you have military service, 4 years in military service or anything combat related, we'll make an exception. 6 months, we'll let you in. We'll let you try out. So I had 6 months. So I tried out. I killed it, man. I was in physical shape, and I was training with Snyder.
Shooting already, yeah.
Shooting good because he was coaching me. He was part of the team, and he was pretty much telling me, hey, this is what you need to improve. So I killed it, got selected, right? And I was the junior guy on the team. Most guys on the team been on the team for 5 to 10 years, you know?
Yep.
Senior detectives, investigators, patrol officers. But I was hungry, man. I was hungry. I found my purpose again. You know, it was just like
New life.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like I left everything behind, you know, like all the bad experiences, everything all my mistakes, they were all, you know, everything was in the past. Now this is my future, my present. I was loving it, you know. And started training, and then started going out to call-outs with the guys, teams, and 9 months in. Well, first of all, let me say that a lot of officers nowadays, they can go to a whole career, whether it's 20 to 30 years. Here in North Carolina, it's 30 years of law enforcement before you can retire. Up north, it's about 20 years, and you can retire. So I was 9 months in, and I was involved in the first officer-involved shooting in 9 months. And this changed.
Is this as a SWAT team member?
Yeah, as a SWAT team member.
Okay.
That changed everything. Man, I was not expecting that.
Now, what's the situation?
9 months in, rookie officer, patrol deputy, brand new guy on the team. Haven't even been to basic SWAT school at the time. But due to my experience in the military and, you know, training with my FTO, my sergeant, I had the basic knowledge of what being on a team was. And so it's a weekend. So law enforcement work 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, day shift or night shift. We rotate. Or some agencies do 1 month on day shift, 1 month off night shift. I was on night shift rotation that weekend. So it was a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So it was a Friday. I worked Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday morning. I think it was a Sunday. May 9th, 2020. Yeah, May 9th. I woke up around 2 p.m. Normal routine, you know, get up, eat, go to the gym, work out, get ready for work. And we work 12-hour shifts. So 6:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. to 6:30 a.m.
Now, if I may, what are you doing in that 12 hours? You're not on the beat. Are you like quick reaction force, SWAT, quick reaction force, waiting for a call? What are you doing for those 12 hours?
12 hours, patrol deputy, usually answering the calls for service.
Oh, so you're in a car?
Yeah.
Okay, check.
Yeah, you're in a patrol vehicle. You're answering calls for service, going, you know, taking reports for larcenies, B&Es, breaking and enterings, or anything.
Domestics,
you know,
whatever come up. Yeah, gotcha.
Disturbances, traffic stops, you name it, right? The SWAT team is a part-time gig where, you know, it's an additional collateral, you know, responsibility. It's not a full-time. There's very few agencies in North Carolina that have a full-time SWAT team.
Check.
Like Raleigh being one of them. And there's all the other couple agencies that have full-time SWAT teams. So most of us are just part-time gigs.
Check.
So we train about once a month. And that's because our training budget, it's not the best.
Yep.
You know, it's very limited. So, but we make it work from what we have. We get the job done, right? So, woke up that Sunday afternoon, got ready to, you know, go to the gym, and we communicate through our group chat. And our team commander sends out a text message. Say, hey, all SWAT team members, be on standby. We have a barricaded subject incident. So, you know, got all my gear ready, which keep all your gear, you know, your
Like a go kit.
yeah, your go kit, your flag, your plate carrier, your helmet, gas mask, your comms, rifle, your duty belt, everything, right? Uniform. So I kept always keep everything ready in my vehicle. Park my vehicle in the garage. So they were like, "All right, man, we need you guys up here." Okay, so I got ready very quick, and I was single at the time, just me and my dog, and walked over to my neighbor's house, who's also a cop deputy, good friend of mine, Eric Smith. And I walked over next door and said, "Hey, man, I gotta go. Can you please watch my dog? You know, my dog is my everything. You know." He's like, "Sure, man. Come on, bring him over." So I leave, and then as I'm on the way there, the radio, man, it's crazy on the radio traffic, hearing what's going on. So the incident was, there was a gentleman that owned the house, and he had invited somebody over for a specific period of time, and then somehow along the way that turned out to be a situation where the owner of the house didn't want the individual in the house anymore. But that individual, the suspect, he was under the influence of drugs, and pretty much threatened the homeowner or the individual who lived in the home to, "Hey, if you don't let me stay here, I'm gonna kill you," you know. And he was armed. He told him that he was armed and that he had homemade IDs at the house. And so the human reaction was, "Hey, I'm gonna call the cops," right?
Yeah, 100%.
So he called the cops, and responding deputies get there, and they start to assess the situation, and they get the information that, yeah, we have a suspect who took somebody hostage. The victim was able to get out, and now he's barricaded in the home. But backtrack, the individual who was in the home, I never dealt with him before. I never really knew who he was. Never had any interactions with him on the streets because I was fresh. I was a rookie officer. So on the way there, I hear officers who are already on scene saying, "Hey, man, this guy's is throwing homemade IDs out of the windows," and everybody's like, "No," everybody's setting up a perimeter, and I hear team members, because it's a Sunday, Sunday, springtime, everybody's with their families, Team members are like, "All right, man, we're en route," everybody's, pretty much getting there. It was about a 45-minute drive from my house. So I'm driving as fast as I can, safely, obviously. And I'm one of the first team members to get on scene. And my team commander was already on scene, and he's pretty much trying to get everything ready, like coming up with a plan to, be able to handle the situation safely. And I get there, good friend of mine's, he's there. And I'm not going to say any names right now because even though this is over with now, there's still some civil liability that's ongoing. So I'm going to keep it very limited as far as name,
Sure, please.
But I try to go as much in depth as I can. So when I get there, it's a small town in the north end of the county. And when I got there, I was one of the first ones. So I got suited up real quick, put my whole kit on. I had my AR-15 out, my Glock, 9mm G45s at the time, and had everything ready, comms, gas mask, and everything is going great. We're coordinating the whole fire. It's evacuating the houses next door to this house. We're blocking intersections. People are being evacuated because it's a very barricaded subject situation. And this situation's that was my first one, man. I never done anything like this before.
Sure.
So I'm just like taking orders and doing anything for my team commander. What do you want me to do? So he's like, "Hey, man, just post up here, put your car here, and just kind of watch me or take cover." So I'm like, I got my AR-15 out, and I'm just kind of like looking through my my optic and just making sure that this dude doesn't come out with a gun. And we're just waiting for the team members to get there, everybody get there. And then eventually we're kind of coordinating a plan of what we're going to do. And this situation was a huge learning experience from everybody, because after the fact we learned that, there's so many things that we could have done better, that we should have done. But, when you're in the situation at the time and your adrenaline is pumping, you're just trying to, make it work. And then when you have different people trying to put in input at the same time, it creates chaos.
Sure.
And now looking back at it, we know that, hey, we have a team member, you're the team commander, and that's the team member who's going to execute the mission, the plan, and we're going to listen to him.
Yeah.
So team commander, develops the plan that, hey, we're going to try to talk to this man and get him out of the house and negotiate with him. So I remember one thing that kind of that made me think was when the individual, the suspect who was in the house, he said, I just want to talk to my son. Like I'm ready to die, but I want to talk to my son.
Mm-hmm.
That was like a red flag to me, because, the dude already had his mind made up.
Mm-hmm.
Like he was willing to, hurt himself and hurt us. And I could hear him yelling at us from the house, from the inside. He was, hey, you come in here, I'm gonna kill every single one of you guys. Like I'm ready to die today, but I'm not gonna do it alone. And I was nervous, man. I mean, we're all nervous.
Yeah.
We haven't had a situation like this, especially me being one of my first situations. All the way up to the point I had to execute some search warrants with the team, but I was usually like towards the back of the stack. It was nothing to this extent,
Sure.
So team commander and everybody's trying to negotiate with this guy, trying to give him a phone, trying to get him to come out peacefully out of the house, as we have a perimeter set up.
Sure.
We have, fire, EMS on scene, everybody. And, at that time is in our hands.
Mm-hmm.
And then we quickly, after the fact, we realized, man, in a situation like this,
Time
is in our
baby.
hands. But given the fact that, we were there, we kind of wanted to rush it.
You felt like you didn't have time.
Right? We just wanted to get to the point of it, end it.
Now, I want to get to the rest of this, but I kind of want to. You said something that was interesting to me. You said, looking back, there were a lot of people offering input that was causing chaos, and you have a leader.
Yeah.
Can you dive into that? Who is, who's influencing your team commander at this point, adding chaos?
So you know how the whole saying goes, too many chiefs, not enough Indians?
Sure.
Okay, so perfect example. A lot of the senior operators on the team were like, hey, man, we need to do this. Let's do this. Let's try this approach. And that was kind of like creating chaos, because our team commander is essentially the one who's responsible for what we do. So he has a situation at hand. He brings it up to the higher, whether there's the sheriff, police chief, whatever, and then they make the final call. Hey, yes, hit the house, go in the house. So he came up with a plan, and the plan was, hey, we're gonna have a perimeter team and an entry team. Because I was one of the first ones on scene, and I was hungry. I was assigned as the entry, one of the entry members. But not only the entry member, I was gonna be the first guy.
Point man up.
Point man. So we call it in law enforcement, we call it the bunker team, the bunker man, which is the shield man.
Mm-hmm.
You have a shield, which is bulletproof, but it's not rated for like rifle or anything like that.
Right.
Just small arms.
Mm-hmm.
So my buddy, good friend of mine, is Ben Parrish, man. I love him to death. Army veteran. He essentially was the one who recruited me to come work for Deepland. And to this day, we have a great relationship. I call him anytime and we talk. So he gave me the shield, and he trusted me as his team member to be able to go in the house and get the job done.
Mm-hmm.
And I trusted him to have my back, and I also trusted the team members to have my back.
Sure.
And like I said, at the time I was single, I didn't have any kids. So I didn't want to disappoint my team. So he gave me the shield to say, hey, Drago, you're gonna go in there, you're gonna be the first one in the house, and we're gonna go home. I said, cool. So team commander goes, we started to negotiate with the guy. He's still refusing. He's just very angry man, making threats towards us, saying, "Hey, anybody comes in this house, you're gonna die. Like, I'm ready to die, and you will die too." So at Jhon,
Are you stacked at this point when he's yelling still?
so no, we're not stacked yet. We're like,
Are you like megaphoning it?
yeah, we're using our vehicle, our radio to our vehicle to like kind of give him commands and stuff. But finally, our team commander who came up with the plan said, "Hey, we're gonna have a perimeter team, entry team. Perimeter team will hold around the house, and entry team will stack up in the house, one of the firewalls on the right, and we're just gonna kind of hold it there, and we're gonna wait." So we did, and in this situation, our team commander he cut the power to the house, and that's an advantage to us because we can go in there and he's not gonna know where we're at, but it's also a disadvantage to us because we're not familiar with the house. We don't know how many rooms, how many bedrooms. And mind you, this is my first actual situation. So I'm holding there. I got the rest of the team behind me. I got like 6 guys behind me. I got the shield. I passed my AR-15 back to another member, and
You're going with the pistol?
Yeah, I'm going with my Glock.
Pistol and shield. Yeah,
Glock. And the decision was made that we're going to deploy gas into the house. So we started pumping gas, CS gas, into this house. And this house was not a big house, about 800 square foot. It wasn't a big house. But we pumped about 7 to 8 canisters of CS gas, which is a lot, a lot of gas. And
just trying to flush him, right?
Trying to flush him, trying to get him out peacefully. But this guy was under the influence. So it didn't take any effect on him. He just, it actually made it worse because he got angrier and angrier, and I could hear him through the walls just getting angrier. And man, I was nervous, I was scared, and I know everybody behind me was feeling the same way. But at the time, we didn't want to tell each other, "Hey, man,
Yeah.
that's not what we do." And so we pumped gas, and I started looking around, and I started realizing that most of my team members were not ready for the situation at hand. And when I say ready, because it was a Sunday, right? Most of the guys came from, family events. I saw one of the team members, he was wearing like a t-shirt and shorts, had a handgun and a vest. Couple of us had gas masks. Some of them didn't have any. We were just not prepared for the situation, which again, later on, we went back and we picked it and we realized everything that we did wrong, what could have been better, and how in the future we would handle things.
SOPs need to be adjusted.
Right.
Yeah.
So we waited and nothing. Like, this guy would not come out. So finally, team commander makes contact with higher, and they gave us the green light to make entry into the house. So the house had a side door and a front door. So we're gonna make entry to the side door. So I go up with my shield. We give the bunker man or the ram guy, we give the signal for him to come and hit the door. So he came up. One of my good friends hit the door a couple times, and it just would not open. It was barricaded. So the guy had barricaded himself inside of the house and placed heavy furniture in all the doors. So after trying to hit that door multiple times, it became a failed entry. So at that point, we had to use an alternate route, which was the front door of the house. So we went around the front door of the house, and same thing. Breacher was trying to breach that door, and our breacher's a big dude, 250 pounds, strong guy, and these doors were not opening. So man, we started to get frustrated. The frustration started to set in within the team members. Like, man, we need to get in here, So somehow our team member ended up securing or finding an extra key to the side door. Like, he got on the phone and made a phone call. I don't know exactly what happened, but he found a spare key, and he went up there and unlocked the door. And when he unlocked it, the breacher came back up in and hit it a couple times, and the door just boom, off the hinges. And I was wearing a gas mask, right? Helmet, comms, full kit. I got a shield in front of me, and I'm looking through a viewport, which is a small viewport, and the gas is just pouring out of the house. Mind you, there's no light to the house. It's just gas. Very dark, very, challenging. So, but at that point, I had no time. I couldn't think. I couldn't just sit there in the fatal funnel, like we call it, You got to go in. Because, you sit there in fatal funnel.
That's dangerous.
So I made entry into the side door, which led through the kitchen. First one in, small kitchen. Cleared it real quick, and then it was a straight hallway. And then I remember looking up the straight hallway. Everybody's behind me, and we're screaming, sheriff's office, search warrant, whatever. Come out. And I look straight. There's a door straight ahead of me, a door to the left, and a door to the right. All doors are closed, right? So 2 team members go to the left, and my team commander grabs me. He said, "Hey, Drago, we're going straight ahead." So we're going in. We go in that room. We cleared it real quick, look under the bed. There's nothing there. Nobody there. Same thing on the left. There's nothing there. So at that point, we knew that there was only one place left where we needed to look, which was the bathroom. And we knew he was in there because we could hear him.
So he's like hacking or coughing or
no, he
still
was
yelling at you?
Yelling, coughing, and just angry, man, But at that point, everybody who's in the house, it was maybe like 4 or 5 of us. So it was only 2 of us who were wearing a gas mask. And my team commander wasn't wearing one. But everybody else who wasn't wearing one started to take the effects of CS gas.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you guys been around CS
Oh,
gas,
yeah.
it sucks.
It's not fun.
So everybody's running out of that house. Multiple team members run out of the house. And then at that point, it's just me and my team commander sitting in front of that bathroom door. And I'm breathing through, gas mask. I'm holding that shield as strong as I could with my handgun out. I'm ready for any situation, right? So I call the breacher. I began to say, "Hey, bring that ram." So one of my good friends of mine, comes in with the ram and it hits that door multiple times. And I think on like the 3rd time, the door finally splits in half. And when it split in half, man, I remember seeing all that gas coming out, and I saw a big, white, angry man with a long beard. He wasn't wearing a shirt. He was tatted up, like covered in tattoos, and it was like seeing the devil himself, man.
Did he come out at you?
He
Or
rushed
you just
through
see-
that door. He rushed through the door, pinned my team commander to the floor, and was trying to, grab his firearm. So when we go to police academy, they teach us like, hey, if somebody's ever trying to grab your firearm, you pin yourself to that floor and you protect that firearm no matter what.
Right.
So that's exactly what he did. He fell to the ground, pinned it, and I'm right there holding that shield, giving him verbal commands. Hey, stop moving. Show me hands. And he turns his attention towards me, and we made eye contact, and it was just like a split of a second. And I'm out here holding that gun out, shield, and he reaches out for my handgun. Big dude. I mean, he was like 6'3", probably twice my size, man. He reaches out. And at that time, I had a split of a second to make the decision because I knew, like I said, we're carrying G45s, 17 in the magazine, 1 in the chamber, if I'm correct, or maybe 16 in the magazine, 1 in the chamber. But I knew that if he would have grabbed my handgun, he probably would have killed me, my team commander, and anybody else behind me. So I perceived it as a huge threat, man. When somebody tries to reach for your gun, So when he tried to grab my barrel, I shot him 3 times. Shot him in the chest. He fell. I dropped my shield, and he got up. And I double tapped him again, and he fell again. And then at that point, I didn't even have time to even holster my gun. I remember just putting it on top of like a little kitchen table that was like nearby, and just put it there, and I just jumped on top of him and I started wrestling him, and try to get him in handcuffs, and very quickly I realized that I was covered in blood, and I was able to get him in handcuffs, my friend comes in, and at that point, it goes from like, okay, well, now I have to give this guy, I have to render aid. Like, yeah, he might have a bad intention towards me and the rest of us, but now it goes from using deadly force to now I have to save his life. So you flip that switch very fast, right? So we got him out, we drug him out to the side door again, where my team commander was already, somebody went and got him and brought him outside, and they thought that my team commander was shot, the rest of the team, because it was just me and him. So they're stripping him, cutting his clothes, looking for bullet holes. And right away, the EMS was right on scene, and they started working on the suspect. And I went up to my team commander, and I will never forget this, man. I look at him dead in the eye, and I say, man, I promise you I didn't shoot you. Like, I reassured him that I didn't shoot him. Because he was, like, calling my wife,
He wasn't hit, was he?
No, thankfully he wasn't hit. So we moved him, and as soon as after I finished saying that, I turned around, and EMS was like, man, the suspect is dead. Big dude, covered in blood. So it went from using deadly force to now is like, hey, this is a crime scene. So right away, anytime an officer is involved in any type of shooting, the first thing is like, you need to secure that firearm, whether it's an AR-15, shotgun. So one of the supervisors came, secured my handgun, and the team just sat me down. They stripped me down, all my gear, and like, man, I can still remember it. It was like yesterday, My heart was through the roof, blood pressure rising up. That adrenaline, man, it's huge adrenaline dump. And everybody were just like checking each other, making sure nobody was hit. And the first thing I wanted, I told my buddy Ben, I said, man, give me a cigarette, please. Give me a cigarette. And I smoked that cigarette, and it was like a huge, right? So from there, Ben was like, all right, man, you're coming with me. He took me under his wing. And he grabbed me and he took me to a local fire department, and that's where he gave me a Coke. I drank that Coke, and then he was like, "Are you good?" I said, "Yeah, I'm good." He's like, "From now on, I'm gonna be with you. You're not gonna talk to nobody. I'm gonna be with you the whole time." Man, and that was huge to me, because Ben, he's a senior law enforcement officer, man. He's in the Army. He's coming up to retirement here soon. He's still part of the team. And for somebody like him to take me under his wing after a critical incident meant a lot to me. And first thing he said, you need to call your mom. Because mind you, I was single. So he called my mom, and he talked to my mother and told my mother that, hey, Jhon is okay. He's not hurt. We just had an incident. He's going to be okay. That meant a lot to me, because he reassured my family that I was okay. So from there, he put me in his truck, and I secured all my gear in my work vehicle, my truck car, and then I never went back to that crime scene again. I went down to the hospital, and my girlfriend, or the girlfriend, the girl that me were talking at the time, she worked at a ER where I showed up. She was working, man.
Classic.
And,
How'd that go?
So I walked in, man, and I'm covered in blood. My 5'11s, man, are covered in blood, right? And they knew that there was an officer that was arriving to the hospital that had been involved in the shooting. They just didn't know that it was me. So her look and her face, man, she was like, wow, I know she was worried about me.
I imagine.
Yeah. So I get checked by the doctor, and they check my vitals, and he's like, man, your blood pressure's through the roof, man. And I said, well, yeah, I was just involved in the critical incident. What'd you expect?
Yeah.
So from there, I get discharged, man, and Ben is like, hey, we got to meet the sheriff. Like, he wants to talk to you. So he drives me up. We meet the sheriff, and he's like, "Man, young man, good job, man. You're a bulldog. You're a hero. You protect your team. Like, I'm proud of you. Like, we will stand with you the whole time."
That's big.
Man, talk about huge relief, man.
Yeah, because you don't know what they're going to do to you and what they're going to say and what's going to go clear and am I going to keep my job and is there going to be a civil suit? I mean, there's a million things, right?
Right.
A million emotions.
Oh, man. So,
and not to mention you just killed a human being, and that's not a. I don't give a shit who you are and what your profession is. There's things that come with that, regardless of if it was clean, at war, at home, whatever. You kill somebody else and you're up on it. That's different. It's different.
So, getting back in the truck with Ben, and got about another 30 minutes drive back to my house. He drives me home. He didn't even allow me to drive, man.
Sure.
And I get to my house, and I told you in the beginning how I left my dog with my neighbor Eric. Well, Eric's a great deputy, man, former retired Marine as well. And me and him, drinking beer together all the time and talk about law enforcement. And he would give me advice all the time. So when I was walking up to his house, he had a glass door, and I walked up to the glass door, and he was in the couch hanging out with his wife and kids. And he saw me through the glass door.
Are you still covered in blood?
Covered in blood. And
it's not funny.
It isn't, but it is.
Yeah, he instantly, he looked at his wife and kids and said, Go
somewhere else.
He knew.
Yeah.
He's like, "Are you okay?" I said, "Yes." He's like, "I don't want to know any details. I just want to make sure that you're okay." He gave me a hug. Got my dog, went back to my house, and Ben standing outside of my room as I'm taking a shower, man. And I got in the shower, and I'm showering and taking all that blood off me. And it was at that point is when it hit me, man. When I was in the shower, that I realized that I just had obviously took somebody else's, another human being's life. But then I realized why. Like, I said, wow, like I was really lucky. All the training that I learned from the military, from the police academy, from my field training officer, Snyder, I made all that kicked in just a matter of seconds. And I became really grateful at that point because looking back at it, if he would have took my gun, I would not be here right now,
And probably not your training officer either.
Right. So, got out the shower, and, Ben collected all my bloody clothes because of his evidence. And he reassured me that I was going to be good. And he had, they went back to the crime scene, and they were out there all night, man. I mean, the bomb squad ended up going out there. And anytime during an investigation like that, any officer involved, they have to be interviewed by the investigating, agency, which in North Carolina is the State Bureau of Investigation.
Yep.
Who handles all officer-involved shootings. But everybody that day, they were interviewed by them, and I was the only one who wasn't interviewed by the S.W.A.T that day. And the reason why is because when you go through a critical event, you kind of forget stuff.
Sure.
So I went to sleep, man. I slept so good that night. The next morning I woke up and I was like remembering things. Just little minor details about the incident.
Sure.
So I took the next 2 days off. Me and my girlfriend went up to a friend's house near the beach. And we stayed out there, man. And my phone was ringing off the hook, man. Like, I had a work phone, and I just wanted to toss it in the water, man, because it just kept blowing up. Everybody was calling me. Officers who I never even worked with, senior officers, man, retired officers, they were calling me, like, checking on me. Hey, man, are you good? We heard about you. Like, we're so, like, thankful, man. Like, you did something big. Like, you don't even understand. And my sheriff called me multiple times that weekend, and everybody reassured me that I was going to be good. So on the fourth day, I met with the S.W.A.T, and the agent, sat me down, and, it's a criminal investigation. So they record you, and they read you your Miranda rights, man.
Sure.
And there's one thing, being a law enforcement officer, when you read a suspect their Miranda rights, it's different. But when you're on the other side of the table, when they're reading them to you,
Weird, huh?
oh man, that's scary. That's a scary feeling. But this agent, which I'm very close to today, we became really good friends. We text all the time. Very professional. He read my rights, and he told me why I was there, and just asked me about 200 questions, man, in different manners. And obviously, they want to know what happened. They want to know your point. They already know the answer. They already know the puzzle. You're just the final piece to the puzzle. And I told them what happened from when I got there, when I woke up that day, man, all the way till I got home. And they want to know everything in detail. So at that point, I was out of work for about 2 weeks.
Paid or?
Paid, yeah, paid.
Yeah.
But I was also a full-time student. So when I was released from a field training officer, the program, I went back to school to finish my bachelor's online in Homeland Security. So I was a full-time student. So that kept me busy the whole 2 weeks that I was off work. Because I was ready to go back to work, man, like the next day. I was...
Well, I mean, sitting there, idle time's the devil's playground. And when you've had something
Psychological go down like that, it's like you don't want me to sit at home and reel. I promise. You want to give me a field full of hay to bale or something. Sitting at home, it's just like anything else. Shooting, a close death in the family. You're going to sit there and all you're going to do is think and torture yourself. Getting back on the horse, getting back on the routine is probably the right answer. But I understand why they would want you to clear your head, and clear the investigation.
So my friends, this was a very crucial life stage for me because I started realizing that I needed to get closer towards my family, my friends, my girlfriend at the time. And I started drinking a lot, man. The drinking came. Just the aftermath, man. It was hard. The depression from the Marine Corps started coming back around again. But as Marines, we're taught to suck it up and bottle everything down, right? And the way that I would deal with things or deal with stress is going to the gym, working out, running. And I went back to Steve's house, my FTO, my training officer, and he's like, you need to come here as soon as possible, and you need to shoot a gun. You need to make sure that you're able to operate again, and you're not going to be able to freak out. So I did. I went back up there, and I just started, shooting and, just bringing myself back, making sure that I wasn't affected by my, with those actions. So after 3 weeks, I went back to work on desk duty. And at that point, it was a waiting game, man. It was the longest 3 months.
Because of investigation or? Okay.
Yeah. So the investigation. And then 2 weeks after my shooting, George Floyd happened.
Good.
So I was assigned to Ben. Ben is the training man. He was the training coordinator for the agency, and he pretty much handled the firing range, handled any training. So they said, hey, man, you're going to be working with Ben Monday to Friday. Anything that he needs you to do, you report to him. And
is this shit duty or is this look out for you duty?
It was mostly like, we're going to look out for you. Okay. You're going to still get paid.
You're not being punished. They're just trying to find a spot for you where you can kind of ease back in.
But they also can't put you on the road until the investigation's cleared.
Correct, right.
Yeah.
And it was more like, we're not going to allow you to stay home and just drink your thoughts away. Let's bring you back where you can still be within the agency and feel that purpose back.
Yeah, purpose, brotherhood. Now, let me ask you this. Was there an SOP or standard operating procedure over there for officers that were involved in a shooting like this? Was there psychological help or counseling or anything offered in that 2 to 3 week period when you're first off?
Yes. So about 2 weeks into it, I had to see his strength. I met with it was virtual because it was the easiest. So I met with a doctor online. We talked, but at that point I couldn't open up to her because I was still numb to the events. I wasn't really experiencing any of the effects yet. So I just told her, yeah, this is what happened. I'm good. I want to go back to work. So she cleared me to go back to work. So during those last 3 months, I just helped band around the range, cutting the grass, pressure washing, and it was a long 3 months, man. So after the 2 weeks, George Floyd happened, the riots, right? Everybody, the CNN, the news, man, it was all over the news of police brutality, right? And I was getting worried because, like, it was national news. But even though everybody kept reassuring me that I was going to be okay, I was still nervous. And then 2 weeks after that, Atlanta happened. The officer that shot and killed that individual at the Wendy's parking lot. I know you guys remember that?
Yep.
He tried to grab his taser and he shot him. Man, that was another good, and I kept asking
Stirring it up, yeah.
I kept asking my chain of command, when am I going to be cleared? Like, when am I going to be cleared? And they didn't have the answers. They're like, we're just waiting. It's a waiting game. It's a waiting game. So finally, after 3 months, man, of that waiting game and just being around doing, things that I didn't want to be doing, they're like, hey, you're being cleared officially. The district attorney is going to release a press release tomorrow, and it's going to be very detailed on what happened, and you're going to go back to work. Mm-hmm. And they did. They released it to the media, the news, and when I said, tunnel vision, when you're doing something, when they say, that when you're doing something, heat of the moment and adrenaline is going through your body, you do things that you don't know about. Like, for example, when I thought that I shot the man only 2 to 3 times, after the report came back and the autopsy, everything came back, came to the conclusion that I had shot him 10 times, but I missed him 1 time. So I hit him 9 out of 10. And 1 was in the heart, was the deadly, and all the details released, everything. And I was like, damn, it's crazy. So I went back to work.
It's the speed of the mind.
Yeah.
And I think it's a self-defense mechanism because it knows that when you pull those files together and you remember that properly, it could potentially have damaging effects or whatever on you. I think that's your parasympathetic nervous system or your sympathetic nervous system kind of doing things for you, right?
Yep.
Let's file that differently because it was the same thing from combat with us, with almost everybody that's ever been in real, firefight, wherever that happened. You could ask 10 people, boom, 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 same question. How you remember it, and you're going to get 8 to 10 different answers because all of them log that stuff different. And it's probably like an evolutionary fail-safe, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't make it easy when you're trying to figure it out. It doesn't make it feel better.
So before I went back to the road, so like about a month after the incident, the entire team and everybody who was involved, we all gathered around and we did a peer support system with the Highway Patrol. And the Highway Patrol, they have a program called the S.W.A.T team, which they come out, and every time there's an officer who's involved in a shooting, they come out and they provide that mental health support. And all these troopers, they've been in shootings throughout their entire career, bank robberies, traffic stops. So they all been there where I've been. So I remember we all sat in a huge circle, me and all my team members, everybody, right? And they're like, all right, let's talk about it. Let's break it down. What happened? And I started hearing the story from everybody on my team, their perspective and how they were in fear for their life, how this event affected them. And I was the last. Man, by the time it got through like the third, I couldn't even keep myself, man. I was in tears. Duty affected me so much, knowing that I wasn't the only one going through that. Like, my buddies were also suffering, just like I was. That, like, man, I was out there for like 30 minutes just bawling my eyes off, man. And I still think about it and get emotional because, we put on this persona like we're machos, we're big, we're alpha. But in reality, we're human beings and we have feelings too.
It gets jacked up too.
Yeah. So after I went back, man, and I told everybody in front of everybody how I perceived it and how everything that I did affected me. And it was like the biggest weight off my shoulders. I was like, I was so glad. That was the longest month of my life. You know,
I'm sure.
yeah, because I couldn't call my mother and tell my mom, hey, Mom, this is what happened. I couldn't share that with my mom, man. I just told her that I was okay. I couldn't share it with my girlfriend at the time.
Sure.
She wasn't on my shoes. And I couldn't really, as much as I wanted to share with other cops, I couldn't because it's still an active investigation.
Yep.
You know? So I held off and finally, you know, got it out of my system. And then I went back to work, went back to the road, man, and I was like a brand new man. Man, I was proactive, man, stopping cars, you know, seizing drugs and guns off the streets, man, just back to myself again. And started having some issues with some of the leaders at the agency. Not everybody, but some leaders who just didn't want me to be proactive. They just wanted me to answer my calls and just be
reactive instead of proactive.
And that is not the reason why I got into law enforcement. And so we started bumping heads, and one thing came after the other. You know, I got rolled up a couple times for issues that, yes, was I wrong in some of the stuff? Yes, but at the same time, I felt like I had a target behind my back. So it didn't take very long for me to see the writing on the wall that there was a specific individual who just didn't like me. And I knew that as long as I was there and he was there, I wasn't going to go anywhere. Because the opportunity came for me to, the corporal spot came up in my shift, man. And that's the first line of supervisor. So I was going to be in charge of like 3 other deputies, right? And I boarded for it, I tested for it, and I got it, right? They promoted me to corporal for about 6 hours. And me and that lieutenant got into it, man. We got into it, and I told him how I felt about him and how he micromanaged me and how I didn't agree with any of his, you know, his views or anything. And I turned my 2 weeks on it. That was it for me. I just couldn't handle it anymore. So I left that job, and I went home, and man, that was one of the hardest pills for me to swallow, because I drove home in my patrol car, and they came, because I put in a 2-week notice, and I said, hey, I'm leaving, thank you, you know. And I wanted to speak to the sheriff personally. I wanted to you know, speak to the man, like, hey, this is why I'm leaving. You have a problem within your leadership that needs to be addressed. And if you're not willing to hear me out, then why should I be working for you?
Right.
Like, you supported me through this major incident, but you're not listening, you know? Like, to be a leader, you have to be able to listen to your troops, man. And that was the problem with this individual. He was never in the military. So he didn't know what leadership is or was. He was just a micromanager, plain and simple micromanager. And many great cops left that agency because of that specific individual.
Excuse me.
You know?
Yeah.
So they came to my house, man, and they collected all my. They didn't even let me finish out my 2 weeks.
Yeah, they're pissed, huh?
They came to my house, man, that same day, and collected all my stuff, and took that purpose away from me. Like, that car was no longer in my driveway. I didn't have any uniforms, nothing. It was just me. But I knew at that point that wasn't the end of me, you know. So.
But you put your 2 weeks in. It's not like they fired you.
No, I put my 2 weeks in.
You were like, hey, I'm going to be done there. Like, you know what? Just don't even worry about it.
Yeah,
We'll come get our stuff. We got plenty of people, whatever the case.
No, they actually, it made them
so
short.
they didn't have plenty of people,
No.
but they were mad.
Because my sergeant had left already. He had quit. And it was just a line of people out the door, man, that talks leadership, man. People were like, we're done.
Yep.
And not only we were having to worry about getting in trouble in the streets, now we're having to watching our backs from our leadership. Like, man, that's one thing.
Inside the house and outside the house.
You can't do both, man.
Yeah.
So the opportunity came. I knew that there was going to be agencies that are hurting now, because after George Floyd, man, cops started retiring, man. Cops started going out the door early because they didn't want to do nothing with it, no part with it. So I applied down to where I'm working out at Pender, and I got hired on within 3 weeks, man. I was brought in, welcome aboard, and went right back into it.
It's what, SWAT or just on the beat?
Patrol on the beat.
Yep, yeah.
And that was one of the hardest things for me to when I left that agency was leaving the team. But I left, and I knew that the other agency had another team, so I made it a goal and a challenge for me to get on that team. So I was there for about 3 months, and they had tryouts. And I mean, people already knew who I was because it's a neighboring county, man.
Sure.
Word spreads.
Yeah,
They knew
in
who-
the community anyway. Yeah, the law enforcement
Yeah.
community.
They knew who I was, and man, I was willing to prove myself all over again. I didn't care, and I was in great shape again. And tryouts came around, and boom, made it into the team again, and started working on the beat, back to my regular schedule. My daughter was born, actually. Let's backtrack. My daughter was born in January of 2021. Man, and I gotta say that when you're in law enforcement and you don't have kids, it's one thing. But when you're an officer and you have a kid, especially a daughter, man, that changes the entire perspective.
The dynamic shifts. Yep.
Because before, man, I used to stop cars, man, 3-4 o'clock in the morning by myself. 3-4 people in the car, man, guns everywhere, drugs, and I didn't care. I just wanted to be a cop and hold those individuals accountable. But now, after my daughter was born, I started to think about not only me and myself. It was no longer about me. It was about my daughter and my family. Is that traffic stop really worth it, man?
Definitely not alone.
Right.
Maybe you do that with some backup.
So I started shifting my entire perspective of just being the best cop out there. And I started thinking more about my family. It was very hard to turn that switch on and off, man. And in law enforcement, it's hard. It really is. And we struggle with a lot of stress. We work 12 hours, night shift, day shift. We come home, we're tired. We deal with people on the streets who we argue with all day. They lie to us for a living. People lie to us every day. We see the worst of the worst. And then you come home, it's hard.
And try not to drag it through the door with you.
Yeah.
No, I can't imagine.
And it took me about 3 years to realize how to turn that off. And like last night, I worked a full night shift, and I came home. I was able to turn it off, sleep some, and I'm here, So I went back to the beat. I graduated with my bachelor's degree.
In Homeland Security?
Yeah.
Now, is this AMU?
Yes,
I
online.
think we talked about that. I'm pretty sure we had some of the same instructors, actually.
Yeah. But I always wanted to be more than just a street cop. So I applied to the DEA, because I was very motivated about finding drugs. So I applied to the DEA, and I applied back when I was on leave, waiting to be cleared for my first shooting. And I did everything, man. Drove to different cities, interviews, polygraph, all that stuff, man. It was about a 12-month long process. And I was convinced that I was going to be hired by the DEA, man. Like I said, I did everything. The recruiter was like, man, you're good. We're just waiting for your official academy. And that's all I wanted to do. But for some reason, life didn't want it that way, man.
Yeah.
I didn't get selected. They didn't hire me. And talk about being disappointed again, man. Remember how I went back? I told you guys about my first disappointment in life when I wanted to be a special operator. Man, it was like it happened right again.
Felt like that.
And it was a huge pill for me to swallow, man. But then I took some vacation. Me and my girlfriend took some vacation, went down to Key West, came back, and I went back to the board, thinking about life again, what I was going to do with my life. And I said, you know what, maybe this is just not the time for me to be in the DEA. Like, I'm going to be gone. I'm going to move away to another different state. I'm not going to see my daughter. My daughter was like less than a year old. So I said whatever. So I moved down with life. I graduated with my bachelor's. And after I graduated with my bachelor's, I had like a week off, right? And then I went to advanced SWAT school. I started training a lot. So after my first incident, I told myself, you know what? I'm going to be the best trained cop that I could possibly be. And whether that takes time for me out of my own time, because a lot of the agencies, man, we're short with people. You have to find your own coverage. Like if you want to take a day off to go train, like you can't just, we don't have that luxury. Like especially if we're short, you have to find your own coverage.
It's sickening because I feel like there should be worked in a way where you don't have to take time off to go train for your job. I feel like there should be, and that's my ignorance to the situation, to manpower, to resources and budgets apparently, but I feel the same as all these other personalities are saying. 20% of your work week should be training for your work week. How many situations prior to the old angry white man with a long beard come busting out of a door? How many times have you been in a scenario where you had to make a decision that fast as a cop in training? Was it a lot or a little?
I mean, well,
was it ever?
Here's the thing. Like, you go to police academy and then you get hired by an agency. You go to the firing range one time a year.
That's what I'm saying.
One time you go to the range, you shoot your qualification day and night, and then that's it. And then you do your in-service online. Like,
do you shoot a qualification with a CS gas mask on?
You don't.
Do you shoot it with your kit on?
Absolutely not.
Do you shoot it when you're at a VO2 max and your heart rate's pounding through your face and you can feel your pupils dilating and you can feel the heartbeat coming out the side of your eyes?
I mean, you do a little combat course, but it's nothing to that level.
And that's kind of what I'm saying. The way we train to go to war is we try to make it as real as possible and do it so much that
try and make it harder.
When our brain shuts off and goes primitive in fight or flight, the body just knows what it's supposed to do. And you talked about a little bit of that, reverting back to the training. So you had a little bit of that for sure coming out of your schooling, maybe a little bit from the Marine Corps too. But how many cops are out there that when a situation like this happens, you have to make it in a tenth of a second, split decision to, action on saving your own or somebody else's life? How many of them are not doing it or are doing it wrong?
Correct.
And ending up going up a flagpole in some county, jail somewhere and getting run because you panicked, because you haven't had to do these actions with this kind of adrenaline in this kind of time frame, literally ever.
Right.
I always harp on my little brother up in Ohio, like, hey, get your training in. Go to the range. If that's what you have to do, then that's what you have to do. But don't be that one guy that didn't do it, got slouchy, and then ends up in a situation where you either have to push into a bad situation or blow out of a bad situation.
Right.
And man, it's sickening because these are some of the best Americans that we have out there providing a blanket of freedom on the streets, and it seems to me they don't have the resources, the time, and the money available to make them the best cops that they could be for those situations.
Correct.
And so, all right, so I want to understand, dude, we just unpacked a lot. There's a lot to unpack there. Let's speak to, like, when I went and got it on for the first time, it changed me. And it does that to everybody. But when I came home, my people didn't like me anymore. Like my Marines, they didn't understand why I want to train so hard. They didn't understand why we're doing on and off drills for 4 hours with tourniquets one day. They didn't understand that we're doing butter, jam. And I only had a very, very small portion of time once I came back, because then it was like off to another school. Matt's taking the helm. He's making sure he's running the Star Squad. And we're coming out of that going, you don't have a clue, boys. I've been doing this for 10 years. You have zero time to train. You need to get it on now. So, like, did you experience that?
Yeah, so after my first incident, like I told you guys earlier, I made a promise to myself, not only individually, but as a team member and as a cop, to be the best version of myself. Whether it was to be better at running, better at shooting, and just being a team member. So I know for a fact that one of my weaknesses is shooting at long distances with my pistol. So I go to the range and I shoot as much as I can from the 50, 75. And went back to the range, my buddy's house, and luckily he's got the ability, he's got the facility where I could go and train at no cost, man. He just anytime I could go out there, I would go out there.
Put ammo together and let's go.
Right, but that was prior to when COVID, and then ammunition got really expensive. So that's another challenge that came ahead. COVID and then training. Everybody stopped training.
And is that due to the ways of the world with COVID and things of that nature? Also, is it from the George Floyd type incidents that continued to happen? Like, because that stays in the media now.
Oh yeah. And
it's one of those situations where it's being talked about everywhere, every podcast, every show. I'm about to do the DTD podcast, which is a former law enforcement that's trying to put stuff out there, good content out there, picking people up. And it's like there's a craving for this, and we're talking about it, but is it changing? And so what's your take on that? Has it changed since the last 2 years, or are we still in a situation where we're pigeonholing these departments with resources and money?
It's changing.
Okay.
It definitely has, and I say that because when George Floyd happened, we all took a step back and said, we can't be doing that. That's not, there are good cops out there, but there's also bad cops. And we cannot let one bad cop ruin it for the rest of us. So, we went back, and every agency went back, and we started training on, hey, that's not what we're teaching you guys. We're not placing the knee on somebody's neck. We're not.
Because you're an FTO now, right?
Right, yeah. So I went back. It's cool. I became a field training officer. Train guys now. I went to advanced SWAT and went to a bunch of tactical classes because I wanted to better myself, and I wanted to pass down knowledge like it was passed down to me by my FTO. And I hold my trainings to a high standard from day one. And
as you should. You're talking about life and death.
Yes. And it's just the basic things like, hey, we're going to a gas station to get a drink. You're going to back your car in to the gas station. You're not facing your vehicle in because you're at a disadvantage. And it goes back to when my training officer told me approach every situation at an advantage. And
from a dominant position, right?
Yeah, from a dominant position. And not only that, but treat everybody with respect. The biggest thing I have learned in my law enforcement career is treating people with respect. Because we're all human beings. And when I started, I was very aggressive. Oh no, you're going to show me your hands. You are under arrest. And that created a lot of situations where I could have avoided. It could have been prevented just by me speaking to people. And that came with time, experience. And I have found that out that now I could do so much by just talking to people. I can convince you to put your own handcuffs on.
By showing you a little respect, de-escalating the situation,
sympathy,
keeping nerves down, having a little bit of compassion. This is all the stuff that I teach for my course at Franklin County. I teach Franklin County, Ohio. It's the county that Columbus is in. It's the county where my little brother is a CO at, and went through the peace officers course. And it's kind of like up there. There's still some competition, so he's been in the jail for quite some time, looking to get to SWAT or to the to the beat. And so they approached me. I think 3 years ago now. This will be the third year that I've been teaching critical intervention skills with them, and I've taught for 3 straight peace officers courses that they teach. I'm telling them, hey, respect is going to go farther than authoritative tones, and these kind of. I'm no cop, but I know how I would want to be treated, and I'm one of those guys that has issues from the war, and a little bit of disenfranchisement and a little bit of lack of trust system over the last couple of years. And it's like, if these are things common to me that I'm thinking about, these are things that these other veterans in your AO and your constituents and the people you're supposed to keep safe, that's what they're thinking about, a lot of them. And so we really get after it. We do a 2-hour course during their peace officers course, just specifically speaking on these things and on these situations and on the danger. I mean, you take a disenfranchised SF guy or a regular infantry guy, you're talking about somebody that you don't want to come up and be authoritative with. The difference in how you approach some of these people could be a shooting versus not a shooting. And, everywhere in between, depending on the demeanor, the respect, and the de-escalation that you can bring to the table, And so we talk a lot about that. I think that's needed. I think that's needed more places. But I'm glad that your guys' training is continuing. I know offline you were showing me some pretty sick training where you got snipers shooting off of tables and making runs. Like, tell me what you're implementing during that and how that training came about, why it came about.
So our team now, we have a very young team. A lot of Marine Corps veterans in the team that I'm in now, which is great.
Sure.
We have a strong bond. We have some senior operators who pass a lot of knowledge down to us, and we're blessed to have that. Mm-hmm. We also have retired SWAT operators from my friend Blake, man, great guy. He did 8 years as an operator in Fayetteville. Saw a lot of training under his belt. He's been coming around a lot, and he's got his own company now, Black Flag Solutions, who teaches other law enforcement officers across the United States. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And we're blessed by that. Those individuals who come out and help us out. And so this training that I was just showing you earlier, we just had our SWAT competition, and we pretty much went out there and competed against other SWAT teams who have, some of them have better training budgets than we do. Mm-hmm. And they have better gear, they got optics in their weapons, they train longer. But I'm very proud of my team because we beat 2 teams, and we lost to the Highway Patrol team, which are great guys, humble, super great guys. But it was a huge learning experience because it created such strong bond amongst each other,
camaraderie.
And now we're gonna take training even more serious. Mm-hmm. We want to train even more now.
Hungry.
Yeah, we're hungry because next year we want to go back and we want to win the competition.
Sure.
So that's the beauty about being in law enforcement, but it's even better about being in a team. And I won't lie to you, I have many friends who have gotten out of the profession, to include my FTO. He got out. Many good friends who are no longer cops are doing other things.
Why?
And, well, because, number one, after the whole George Floyd incident happened, they said, they didn't want to be part of that no more. They didn't want to be held accountable for a simple mistake that,
Yeah.
Number one. Number two, they wanted to be home more with their families. And we don't get in law enforcement to be rich. We don't.
No.
We
wrong place to do that.
Wrong place. We don't get paid the best, but we really do make a difference. Every day to me it's not the same. I go to work today, and I know that tonight is not going to be the same as last night. Every day is different. And that's the beauty of being in law enforcement. Every day you are truly experiencing different things, and I do it because it gives me that purpose of life that I am missing from not being in the Marine Corps anymore. And my younger brother just left the Marine Corps. He's going to be getting ready to be a state trooper in New Jersey.
Get some.
Yeah. But a lot of friends, good friends of mine are no longer cops. And, we talk every day, and I have taught about getting out of law enforcement many times. There's been many opportunities where people have reached out to me to come work for them and do different things. And I have thought about it. It had crossed my mind. But at the end of the day, I know that there's more that I can offer. And
do you think some of these opportunities would fulfill that void of purpose that you've, found and reinvigorated within you?
No, definitely not, because the money might be good, but I know I'm going to miss it. I'm going to miss being in the streets. I'm going to miss talking to people. I'm going to miss being on the team with the guys. So that is the reason why I love this profession and I truly enjoy it. And giving back, training the new generation that comes along the way. Like I'm still, I'm going on 4 years, but I feel like I have some knowledge that I can pass down.
Yeah.
And with that being said, I went back to work after my first incident, went back to school, graduated with my bachelor's, picked up my master's right away in criminal justice with the same school, full time, with my daughter, having whole, family, and just, it was very stressful. And Then December 14th, 2021 came along, and that's when my second incident occurred.
And this is with Tender now.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, little less than a year with them. And so it was a Tuesday morning, and I had a domestic violence protection order that I needed to serve. That's one of the functions they would do as a sheriff's office, civil process. So I went out there, and it was about a 40-minute drive from anything. It was a very rural area. And, before I got there, I looked up the guy on our system, and I knew that I saw that he had some warrants for his arrest for child support. And he had also some, his father was the one who took out the restraining order against him. He had some traffic-related warrants, but nothing major, nothing crazy.
Nothing violent.
So
or like to tip you off.
Right. It was it was in the morning, 9 o'clock a.m., and my whole purpose was to go out there to serve this individual, and I wasn't even going to take him to jail because I was going to give him the opportunity to handle it.
To do his big boy thing. Yeah.
That's the level of where I'm at now. Like, hey, man, I'm going to give you a chance. De-escalation. So I get there, I knock in the camper, and this also, by the way, this is all car and body camera, and it's also is available online. Like, the district attorney released it, a judge signed off of it, and you can see my body camera online where everything took place. But I got there, I knocked on the camper, I asked I tried to make contact with the individual, but I couldn't hear him. So from there, I went upstairs and talked to the dad, and I told him why I was there. He knew I was there because he was the one who took it out. And I asked him where his son was at, and he told me that he was in the camper. So he walked me down to the camper, and I asked him if he had a key to the camper. And he tried to unlock the camper, but he was locked from the inside with a key, with the chain. With the chain.
Okay.
So it kind of cracked a little bit, and then at that point, his son came out. Like, I saw his shadow, and he was angry. You could tell he was under the influence, And he was pissed off, and I said, hey, again, I'm not gonna go into detail about names and everything, but I said, hey, man, I'm here because of this. I gotta serve you with this. Like, that's all.
It's just while I'm doing.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he got very angry, and he right off the bat told me that he had a gun on there. He had a gun with him, and then he was gonna kill me.
He just told you.
So from there, it went from 0 to 100 real quick. Like you see in my video, my body camera video, I holstered my weapon, and I automatically took cover behind my patrol car. Training kicked in again. Told the dad to move out the way. Dad moved out the way, and we're both de-escalating the situation, talking to this man. At one point, I'm pretty much pleading this man to come out peacefully, and that I was going to take him to jail, and I was going to bring him back. I told him, I don't want to hurt you. I promise I'm not here to hurt you. But at the same time, I'm communicating with my backup. Hey, man, y'all need to get here. Like, I'm alone. I need help. So one of my friends, he's coming to me, and the whole cop, everybody's coming to me. The SWAT team got activated. My boys are coming to me. So I knew that I was just going to... Time was in my hands.
You learned this already.
Time was in my hands. And he's like, hey, I asked the dad, hey, what kind of gun does he have? He's like, man, he's got a rifle.
Oh, goody.
So I went back to my squad car, got my AR-15 out, and I just held it. And I could hear the sirens coming. My buddy was coming, and he pulled in right behind me, and I looked back, and he was running towards me with his AR-15 as well. And as soon as I turned back towards the camper, I saw the man, the suspect, jump out from behind the camper. His feet hit the ground, and I saw him running with a rifle in his hands. So we chased him, and the whole time I'm running after him. I'm telling dispatch, hey, man, he's running away from me. He's armed with a rifle. And I'm talking to this man, hey, man, stop running. Please don't do it, But we came across a building, like a brick wall, where I lost sight of him. And something in my ear just kind of told me to stop at that corner. It was like, Drago, stop. You're going to get ambushed. Like that.
Spidey sense.
Yeah. So I did. I stopped, peeked around the wall, and I saw him with the rifle. And he took off down this path. Dirt path, and we continued to chase him. And finally, we're telling him, giving him verbal commands, stop running. We're about 40 to 50 yards from him, and he had the rifle on him. He stopped, took a knee, and raced it at me and my partner.
Just stopped, turned around, took a knee, and about to engage.
And at that point, again, training. We just had qualified at the range. We did drills with our AR-15s, going from the standing to the kneeling. And he was like, it clicked so fast. Like, we both took a knee, and we engaged at the same time. And
You and your partner, your buddy?
Yeah, he was right next to me, offset on the right, and we both engaged at the same time. The tunnel vision hit again. Like, it went from a huge circle to a little circle, and I couldn't hear nothing out of my ears because, it's an AR-15. And at the time, I only thought I only shot like 3 rounds again. So we went up to him, we assessed him, tried to provide, first aid or whatever. And then right after he went down, like the whole office showed up.
Yeah.
Like this man only had to wait literally a minute.
And he could have been alive still.
Yes, but he made that choice. Ultimately, he made the choice. And we both went home at the end of the night. And again, somebody else took me under the wing, a great captain. I love him to death. He took me under his wing and was there for me and for my partner. And then same thing. Went home, started drinking. Again, man, this time was a little bit more. Started drinking liquor. I was out for about a month. And I went down to the psychologist again, talked to the psychologist, but I couldn't let it out, And then it wasn't until the MAT team came over again and we did it all over again that it hit me again. And
sometimes that's what's necessary, is just to know that, hey, this is normal. You're going to feel these things.
Yep.
It's not natural. You didn't see it coming. Maybe you weren't, you obviously handle business, but when you woke up that day, you weren't planning on putting somebody down hard, and that you got to work through that, and it sounds like they at least have a good SOP for the team to come and get around you and be like, hey, this is what we're going through too, and this is your norm, like this is what you should be going through. And just that alone can help somebody that's full-blown alpha. I don't care how many issues you've been in, these things are going to play an effect on you. You know what I mean? There's plenty of books out there by SF guys from the Army and Marines in Raider Battalion and Navy SEALs, and guess what? They all get treatment too. Now. Maybe it didn't used to be like that, but now the knowledge is there, the help is there, and it's like, hey, handle your business, because you can come back and be okay again. But if you don't sort this out, this can be a death sentence for you. You could drown yourself in a bottle, fistful of pills. There's different remedies for every single, different organization out there that they go to. It just seems like finally we're getting to a point where a lot of people are saying, hey, this talking thing and this letting them know reassurance that they're okay and that we've got them seems to work pretty good.
Correct.
All right, so
I went back to work about a month after. I was cleared by the district attorney again. The whole cycle repeated itself, meeting with the SBI and everything. I went back to work, back to the streets, doing my thing. And then about 3 months into it, I started kind of feeling a little weird mentally. And my agency did great at offering me resources. But as a veteran, I couldn't really disclose how I felt to a civilian. So I reached out to the VA, and I got a counselor with the VA who I speak to every month now, and that has helped me cope with different things. And then most of my friends are first responders, so either first responders or veterans. Like, very few of them are not, and that's because it's not how I wanted it to be. It's just how it is. Like, when I went to police academy, I remember they told us your circle of friends are just gonna get closer. Like, your friends are gonna stop being friends the minute they find out you become a cop. They're no longer gonna be your friends, and it happened. Like, all my true friends who I had friends with are no longer my friends because they know I'm a cop.
Interesting.
And then the challenges came with the media, man. The media found out about my incidents, and they try to bash me on the news, saying that that I had 2 incidents, and again,
instead of saying 2 scumbags are now not fucking around on this world anymore and causing people harm, they want to take aim at the police officer that put the scumbag down for doing bad things.
Exactly.
Well, that's the world we live in right now, unfortunately.
Thankfully, I have great leadership, great commands, great attorneys who back me up, and everything is being handled. Like, at the end of the day, I was cleared by two different district attorneys of any wrongdoing, and I'm still doing the job. And so I went back. Like I said, I was in school early this year, or June of this year. I graduated with my master's. And remember I told you about that toxic leader that I know that I bumped heads with?
At Duplin?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I told myself I didn't want to be like him.
Mm-hmm.
So I started a leadership course. And, I just completed one of the first modules, and it's all strictly about leadership. And now I have a great leader who I look up to, and he understands, man. He's out there doing the job with us. He doesn't micromanage. And that is what law enforcement is about.
Mm-hmm. Well, you have to have a decentralized decision-making command, much like we have in the Marine Corps. Otherwise, it doesn't work. I mean, if you're waiting on the time, that's the time right there. Mm-hmm. And these things happen in microseconds, not even full seconds. So having a centralized chain of command that's micromanaging everybody's not what you want in that situation. Yeah. But you do want cops that know how to manage themselves. Yeah. And so that's awesome, man. So what's it look like now for you? What's next?
So
I mean, I know you're still there. You're still at Pender, but I mean, you seem like you're really enjoying that. You seem like you got pretty good leadership cadre, over top of you. You're comfortable there, comfortable staying there, and like that's your future plans, or what do we got?
So in the future, I mean, like I told you, my end goal is to be in federal law enforcement. That's what I wanted to do, and that's what I would continue to strive to be. Mm-hmm. Currently in the process with the U.S. Marshals. Now almost done with the entire process. Just got a few things left, and it's been a crazy process. Almost 2 years in the process. It's a long process, but just being patient. And now I'm just kind of enjoying my time with my family, my daughter. Seeing my family grow means a lot to me. Mm-hmm. She's definitely one of my biggest motivators, because now I have to think about her. It's no longer about me. Mm-hmm. But now it's just me trying to be a better individual, a better, whatever, dad, team member, officer, son. And training, man. Training is a lot. I know some of the weaknesses that I have to improve in, and that's what I'm focusing on now, is just going out to the range and improving whether it's my marksmanship skills, my CQB skills, and just being a better version of myself. And not only learning it for myself, but learning it to pass it forward to the guy behind me. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because it makes no sense if I'm going to be a better cop and I'm going to go to all this training in schools if I'm just going to keep it to myself.
Fact.
It will be a disadvantage to the community and to the profession. Mm-hmm. And law enforcement is not a job. It's a lifestyle. Mm-hmm. You have to live. You're either a cop 24/7 or you're not a cop. And unfortunately, in the last 72 hours, 14 cops have been shot in the United States. In the entire United States, 7 have been killed, to include the last one last night in Raleigh, off-duty cop. So this year alone, I have been to 3 funerals. Mm-hmm. And every time I go to a funeral, man, I cry, because it really hurts me. I take it personally. Even though I might have never met that officer,
that's part of you.
It hurts me, and I cry every single time. And that's why I want to be a better individual, a better officer. That's when I train more. I mean, and sometimes you just can't prevent, but if I know that I could be better, like if at the end of the day, I'm going to be able to live with that, and my family's going to be able to live with that. But yeah, that's the future. That's pretty much. I'm young. I'm only 27. I'll be 28 next in 2 months. So I still got, a whole career ahead of me, man. And one day I plan to be a leader. I hope to,
I think it's obvious to me from this side that you're leading. You don't have to have a title and a ranking insignia to be a leader, nor do you need any of that to be a mentor. And you're mentoring these young guys on things that you fucked up or didn't fuck up. So that they can at least, that's the whole purpose of my show, is to bring guys like you on, like him on, like the other guests I've had. And it's like these current hitters in the Marine Corps, Army, SF, infantry, all around the world. See, it's anybody can come here, and now police officers and firefighters that we've had on can come here, and they can get this knowledge of things that have happened in their profession to the professionals working beside them, and then have that quick acquisition if that comes up. That's why I push reading so much. You read, you have a Marine read that book right there, and it's going to give you, 100 different TDGs and the contextual information of why we messed it up and how you could do better, right? And that's what I'm about, because if we don't, like you said, if you get all this in a selfish way and never pass it down, you didn't do anything. You just got a bunch of knowledge. Yeah, maybe it helped you out a little bit. But if you get it, you pass it, you train it, and you have that culture of, no, this is the way we do it, and this is the right way, and it's time proven and tested, and then we're going to continue to tweak that, right? Because nothing's perfect. They're always going to find a workaround. The enemy, the guys in the streets doing bad things, they're always going to find a workaround. Who's on what shift? Where are they going to operate now? You know what I mean? They're smart. They're going to do that.
Right.
And so there will always be those small tweaks, those windage adjustments and those elevation adjustments. And maybe we need to, hey, no knees on the throat, boys. What are we doing kind of thing? Like, let's be, if you're not doing that, you should be. If you're a leader in a PD or a CO somewhere, an SO somewhere, and you're not having the Dragos of your unit come out and implement this training and you're not doing it, then you're failing your department and you're not living up to your title, in my opinion. So, and
I'm truly blessed, man, that I have a strong support system behind me, family, girlfriend, mother, other cops around me who truly support me. And when I even mentioned to them that I have thought about getting law enforcement, they truly get upset at me. And they said, no, you need to stay in law enforcement. You are the future of law enforcement. And that really brings me back to reality, brings me back, and I'm like, damn, yeah, maybe they're right.
I have a responsibility.
Yeah, like I can make a difference in the future. Like right now, I don't want to get promoted. Like there has been many opportunities for me to get promoted, and I have.
Does getting promoted take you away from your current job setting?
It would be more of a supervisor, and I mean I would still be with the guys, but I'm not ready yet.
Yeah,
I really don't feel like I'm ready to be a supervisor, and that is because I truly enjoy being out there, man, and just doing what I do. I mean, I feel like I have more. I need to grow more to be a supervisor, and maybe in the
knowing
future,
that about yourself is, and being able to say it in public forum is courageous. One of the big things in the Marine Corps that always stuck with me from the beginning was, know yourself and seek self-improvement.
Yep.
We're not doing everything for you. When you're deficient, make yourself less deficient. However you do that. We might not be able to do it and this is exactly what you're embodying. You're taking off time to go to the range, and not only that, you're going to go to the range. You're going to bring that back and train your junior guys up on, or get them to the range, and that's what it's truly about, man.
My goal is, if I go to the range one day off work, I try to take somebody with me, one of the guys with me. That is my goal, because if I could take somebody with me, I'm going to make somebody else better. Not only myself, but somebody else is going to be better.
Sure.
So that's really like moving forward. I'm not only looking to better myself, but I'm looking to better somebody else.
Better the team, yeah.
Better the community, man.
Yeah, man. Well, dude, we've been going for a while. I think we can kind of chop it right there. It's been insightful conversation. Before we go though, I noticed on your shirt it says Gen Rats only. Is this like a police ran kind of situation? Would you go ahead and give them a little shameless plug?
So one of my good friends, man, Sean, and his wife Tori. Sean is a retired Marine, and Tori is also a retired Marine who got injured just like I did. And they are both very into physical fitness and just bringing that better version of yourself. So they have their own local veteran-owned company for physical fitness, and also they coffee. They brew their local coffee once a month, man, and I've been one of their main supporters since day one. And
where's this at?
It's right here, local, Richlands.
Where at?
Hall Branch Road.
Hall Branch Road. You local people go out and check them out. What's it call?
Well, their coffee is actually available at like Mike's Farm,
okay,
and other stores. But if you guys are interested, GymRatsOnly.com or GrowCoffee.com. And
Grow Coffee.
Yep.
Okay.
But I'm thankful for them. They gave me some T-shirts. Next month, I will be going to different colleges and different police trainings as a guest speaker. Already this year, in March of this year, I was one of the guest speakers at the 2022 NC2A S.W.A.T symposium, which about 20 teams came out. And I was one of the guest speakers where I spoke about my first incident in detail. I had a PowerPoint, pictures, videos. And that really touched my heart because I saw senior officers walk up in the middle of my speech and like were crying and walking out. And afterwards, they approached me and said, "Man, thank you. I needed to hear that. I've been waiting for so many years to finally meet somebody that has been in the same shoes as I am and knowing that I am not alone." So next year, the opportunity came. I'll be in Wolfson next year, November 14th, and I'll be in Charlotte, November 2nd and 17th. I'll be speaking to different cops that are going to tactical training as well, and just sharing my story and meeting them and just letting them know that they're not alone. So that's where I'm at now.
Man, good on you. That's going to do it for us, guys, today. I hope you took something out of this interview. It's been insightful. It's the people that are on the streets every day, the true embodiment of an officer that cares about the community, the constituents, and the people that he serves. Drago, forever grateful, honored to have you on the show, and
I brought you a gift.
Can't say enough. Yes, sir. Yeah, please.
Yeah, show the camera.
Hold on.
New team shirts.
These are our team shirt.
Pender County Sheriff's Office Special Response Team.
Yep. And,
SRT. Heck yeah, man. I'll sport it up for sure.
That coin also, all lives matter, but mainly all blue lives matter.
Fact. All right, you guys got it. You know where you can find Drago. Hopefully you don't find him on the business end. You want to find him in the professional end of things. But, man, like I said, I want to stay in touch. I'm glad that I met you. I'm glad that you came out and you were so generous with your time today, on a Friday. But I appreciate you. And until next time, guys, choices, not chances.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Well, that concludes this episode. Thanks for listening to Choices Not Chances podcast. Please share, like, and subscribe wherever you listen or watch our podcast. You can also follow us on social media at Choices Not Chances podcast. Thanks, and have a great day.
Louisiana Gun Shop, your firearm headquarters, specializing in concealed carry guns, ammo, and training. You can get your Louisiana permit with us. Also a large selection of AR-15s, or if you are that build-it-yourself type of guy or gal, we have all the parts to build and customize your own AR-15. Glock, SIG, Taurus, Ruger. We have all the brands, both in the store or at LouisianaGunshop.com.
Not too far. You're marking a building. Hit him. Yeah, that's good. That's a good shot. That's money. Yeah.